Chapter 641 The Clone Army, and the Joy of the Machine Soul. Although he has created a super trump card, Owen does not intend to expose the Queen Mother now, let alone have anything to do with the Empire. It is obvious that this will also turn the Empire into a public enemy in the material world. After all, no one likes to devour everything. So most of the time, the Empire still needs to rely on itself to fight. In this case, he must cheat for the Empire. First of all, there is the issue of population. The main force of the Empire's fighting force is humans. But there is an upper limit to how many humans can reproduce. And they cannot breed like offspring one after another. Since the Zerg were all out, Owen, who no longer had any scruples, simply used the cloning technology. In many game worlds, human cloning is not a sophisticated technology, and there are many who can achieve mass production. However, they are limited by the so-called morals and ethics of civilized society, and dare not do it openly. As for privately, if there is no, where did the cloning technology come from? The Empire didn't have these concerns. And even if it did, it couldn't care less about it now. So after Owen redeemed a variety of cloning technologies, the Empire's Scientific Research Center quickly integrated a cloning technology, or cloning machine called Hive. The structure of the integrated cloning machine is similar to a honeycomb. After concentrating most of the functions on a huge metal column, a series of culture chambers are spliced outside the core of the central column. They are shaped like pine cones, and can theoretically be spliced infinitely. However, in order to it is convenient for construction and maintenance, and the upper limit will not exceed 10,000. However, due to the excessive pursuit of efficiency, the clones produced have various defects, such as slow reaction, physical weakness, and inability to take care of themselves. The Empire does not need a group of bodies that can only crawl on the ground. So it has made further improvements to the original design. In addition to adding memory infusion and brainwashing devices, it also added strengthening potions and bioelectric currents. The former will allow the clones to have the memory of basic education and incomparable loyalty to the Empire from birth, while the latter will allow the clones to have strong physical fitness and corresponding muscle reactions, like elites who have been trained for many years. I thought this would be perfect, but the problems of genetic defects and collapse of consciousness persisted, and the defective rate remained high. Later, after repeated inspection and research, I found that this was not a technical problem, but caused by insufficient life source and incomplete soul. There is an upper limit to the number of lives that can be reproduced in each plane. Otherwise the planes would not be graded. Theoretically, the higher the level of the plane, the more intelligent life it can sustain. Therefore, once the life beyond the upper limit of the plane is reproduced, there will be inherent deficiencies. There is nothing Irving can do about this. After all, the total amount is only so much, and he can't make something out of nothing. However, if internal strength is insufficient, external strength can still be sought. Owen, who knows how to adapt, immediately ordered the Empire to transform the clone Hive into a void spaceship. The modification is very simple. First strengthen the overall structure, then fix it on the keel, then cover the SHL and install the engine to take off. Anyway, there is no need to consider combat issues. The weapons and armor only need to be kept to a minimum. After arriving at its destination, the Hive spaceship, which is as bloated as corn, is inserted into the void fruit driven by spiritual energy, and then continuously absorbs the magical substances in it. The void fruit is the beginning of all life in the material world. Everything from a plane to an insect is derived from the void fruit. Therefore, after absorbing the power of the void fruit, the flaws of the clones have been completed. In addition to similar looks and the same consciousness, they are not very different from normal humans. But it is difficult to adapt to normal life, let alone integrate in. Because of there are no such life experiences in his memory, and he lacks all kinds of desires. But as a soldier, the clone is undoubtedly perfect. They are loyal to the Empire, abide by discipline, do not question or hesitate, obey orders and prohibitions, and have no fear of any enemy they face. They are simply the perfect soldiers that any officer dreams of. Thanks to the improvement of clone Hive technology, the Empire has a steady supply of soldiers. The 10 hives built in the first phase alone allow the Empire to obtain 100,000 high-quality soldiers every year. Ordinary soldiers only need more than this time to train. Not to mention that the training time can be shortened to 30 days, if no matter the cost. Although the soldiers cloned in this way have mental and genetic damage, and their lifespan will not exceed 3 years. As emergency products, they are undoubtedly qualified. This is just the beginning. The Empire plans to increase the number of clone hives to 100 within 10 years, so that it can cope with the increasingly large-scale Void War. As for how many clone hives will be built in the end, it can only be said that the Empire is very ambitious, because that is a 5-digit number. After the population problem was solved, Owen then exchanged the source of fire. There are elemental creatures in the material world, but silicon-based life forms, like the Autobots, have never appeared, and there is no basis for their existence. Unless Owen is willing to hand over the source of fire, and let the source of fire become part of the laws of the material world. Of course Owen was unwilling. So he threw the source of fire into the subspace to strengthen the machine soul, making the Empire's huge number of machines seem to have souls, and undergo incredible changes. Although there are more cumbersome rituals to pray and praise the machine soul, and a huge number of bells have to be cast, the machine soul's joyful machine can often create jaw-dropping miracles, such as a 30-round bolt gun. After firing hundreds of rounds of bullets, the Void battleship drifted in the enemy formation. Why is it becoming more and more like Warhammer? Owen, who was staying in the subspace to observe the material world, suddenly felt a bit of toothache. Is it because of him, or the material world? Anyway, the smell of Warhammer is getting stronger and stronger, and Owen doesn't know whether these changes are good or bad. But think about the other side of the Warhammer for peddlers. Korn, who represents courage, Slaanesh, who represents joy, Nurgle, who represents life, and Cinch, who represents wisdom. Maybe these changes are for good. Owen thought this unconfidently. As for whether he really thought so, it didn't matter. He was forced to do it anyway. While Owen was busy helping the Empire cheat, he did not realize that the Orcs and Void Zerg had already involved more forces. The Orcs will fight anyone, and the Void Zerg will eat everything. In the eyes of both sides, there are no allies or camps at all. It depends on who fights whom, and who eats whom they see. As a result, more and more unlucky people are involved along the way, eventually turned into a fierce melee. There are only a few gods who can push the plane and run. Even if they can't outrun the Orcs and Void Zerg. As a result, any force that encounters these two can only choose to resist to the end or escape alone. If you look at the Empire, you will know that any resistance is a joke. Even the gods are no exception. Therefore, countless planes and kingdoms of gods were destroyed. On the contrary, this caused the Void material concentration in Owen's area to skyrocket again, because the plane that still persists here is like an attractor, attracting the birth of new life here. Chapter 642, The Long Battlefield. Silver Flash desperately fled in the Void with Mira and Shu Lao's seeds. The Green Land of Order has been destroyed. They have also lost their own plane and the Kingdom of God. They have lost contact with the Order camp for a long time. Now they only have King Go to Irving like a lost dog. As for Owen's current situation, they don't know, but reality forces them to take a gamble. If they lose the bet, they will die together. If they win the bet, they will probably die late. Who made the Order camp offend too many forces in the past? Now they are being besieged by a group of people, and those who want to add insult to injury have to queue up, and there is no way for them to survive. It seems that there has been a big war here. But who can beat the Orcs like this? Silver Flash said in surprise. He had never seen the Orcs beaten so badly. The Void was full of corpses that had no time to decompose. And even there is also the most troublesome war land fragment for the Orcs. This thing can even smash the demiplane into pieces like cheese. But now it is scattered into the Void waiting to be decomposed, causing the concentration of nearby Void matter to increase a lot. So the corpse, that's why it decomposed so slowly. I haven't heard that there is any powerful force here. Mira emerged from the silver shining mane, looked at it carefully, and then said doubtfully, there is no fluctuation in divine power. It seems to be just a mortal war. However, it is really amazing that the Orcs who can fight with the power of mortals are stopped. Silver Flash said in amazement. Even he has never seen such a thing. And Mira kept saying it, nodding in agreement, because the plane that belongs to them has not resisted. But it can only be said to be better than nothing. Orcs don't know magic, and their biggest reliance is the power of chi and blood. This is a huge disadvantage. But the power of chi and blood is one of the few powers that is not affected by the Void. So it is easily restrained by magic in the plane. But it is difficult to use in the Void. When using magic, an Orc can kill a fragile mage with one finger. Even a unicorn cannot fight against more Orcs in the Void, let alone the fragile goblin. The powerful physique and terrifying numbers make any mortal force extremely powerless in the face of the Orc Void invasion. Therefore, gods must intervene. Otherwise it is only a matter of time before destruction. But once the gods intervene, the orc gods will definitely jump out with their mouths wide open and beat the opponent violently. This trick has been tried many times. Therefore, facing the invasion of orcs is always a headache, because you can't defeat it. But if you can defeat it, you will see if these gods will kill the orcs. Now there is actually a powerful force that is on par with the orcs, who are as powerful as Hobbs. How can they not surprise Silver Flash and Mira? As the Silver Flash continued to deepen, the grand battlefield taking place in the void slowly unfolded in front of him and Mira. It turned out that what they saw was just the beginning. In the endless void, giant metal ships that are hundreds or even hundreds of meters long are flying at extremely fast speeds driven by powerful engines. Their thick armor and multi-layered energy shields allow the warships to completely ignore the corrosion of the void and not care. The corpses and debris floating in the void were like wild boars rushing into the farmland. Silver Flash and Mira had never seen such a huge metal creation. It was completely beyond their imagination. In their astonishment, this steel fleet, led by the largest warship, violently smashed the weak dimensional barrier of the orc war land, suspended there like an aerial fortress, posing the greatest provocation to countless orcs. The angry orcs ignored their kin who were drawn into the void. Under the leadership of the war chief, they roared angrily and tried to attack those human creations that dared to stay above the orcs' heads. In the Golden Shield first-class battleship, Shu Lia reclined lazily on the powerful and comfortable captain's chair, recalling the beauty of last night. I have to say that the demonized elves are very powerful for both men and women. Shu Lia's handsome appearance, charming temperament, proficient skills, flexible tail, and amazing endurance have made Shu Lia unable to stop after having a taste of it all these years. However, Shu Lia was more interested in war, especially leading the Imperial fleet to fight countless enemies in the void. In comparison, as a pirate queen, she was as childish as playing with a duck in the bathtub. Don't these orcs know how to learn their lesson? Shu Lia said boredly, as she looked at the orcs charging towards the battleship under the leadership of the demigod war chief. Release the Void Wanderers to guard the battleship. Find the hidden orc priests at the same time. Solve these troubles, and then warm up the main guns, ready to give the orcs some color. After all, Shu Lia never underestimated these orcs, and followed the steps issue orders. As the armor unfolded, the Void Wanderers hidden inside were like a swarm of bees leaving the hive. Some guarded around the battleship, and some lowered their altitude and shuttled over the orcs, looking for the orc priests. Since there are orc gods, there will naturally be orc priests. And they are also the very few orcs who have the ability to cast spells. However, most orc priests only like to rush forward and crush the enemies after being in a blessed state. Only a few weirdos like to use long-range spells to solve the enemies. Although there are few, it has to be said that the orc priest spells are in the same style as the orcs and are famous for their powerful power. Therefore, out of caution, Shu Lia plans to resolve these unstable factors first, facing the Void Wanderers flying in groups. The orcs can only rely on long-range attacks such as throwing axes, which they are not good at. However, the speed of the swooping Void Wanderers has reached the speed of sound, and the frontal exposure area is very small. If you want to rely on if you hit with the axe throwing, it really depends on your luck. And even though the Void Wanderer is not that big, it is faster and more flexible. Not only does it have wings that are sharper than blades, it can also emit high-temperature rays. Although it is not fatal to the orcs, it will immediately expose itself once it is damaged. And it is very powerful. Even if the skin is as thick as an orc, it will be blown to pieces, which is fatal. As a result, a group of orcs either had their hands and feet cut off by Void Wanderers that passed by at low altitude, or their skin and flesh were scorched and rotted by heat rays. If they were unfortunate enough to see the dive, the explosion in the blink of an eye would turn the unlucky orc priests into charred pieces. By the way, all the orcs around him were implicated. But what really caused the orcs to feel the pain and shocked both Silver Flash and Mira, who accidentally entered the battlefield, were the metal projectiles fired by those giant ships. The weight of each heavy artillery SH.L is measured in tons. After being launched, it still maintains strong kinetic energy and sinks deeply into the extremely hard ground of the war land, just like a lead ball falling on a sponge pad. But the power it explodes is as powerful as a small one. The volcano is enough to turn an area of several hundred meters into AH.L. The only difference is how many pieces the orc will break into. When prepared, a single salvo can send an orc into a state of ecstasy. And that's just the beginning. Chapter 643 The Intervention of the Orc Gods. The warship hovering in the air acted as a fortress. The heavy LS and ammunition packages were quickly loaded into the heavy gun bore with the cooperation of the internal personnel. With a violent vibration, as the LS flew out of the gun bore, the exhaust gas was also released. As the smoke exhaust pipe vents out, it cannot be discharged 100%. So the toxic gas still fills the cabin. So the staff must wear gas masks to work. But even so, the lifespan will be greatly shortened. After all, the gun cabin, the environment is really bad. The LS fired by burning life represent the anger of the Empire. Even the orcs can't withstand such a terrifying fire bombing, let alone a big exploding torpedo. If it is fired, all living beings are equal. Even though the orcs' fighting spirit never faded, they were stunned by the bombing. For the first time, they discovered that there were battles they didn't like. Although the Imperial fleet looks like it is going to bloodbath the entire war land. But none of this involves divine power. Even if the orc gods who have been watching are scratching their heads anxiously and wishing to jump out immediately, they have to abide by the rules of the game they have set. If you don't see God, you won't end up. The problem is that orcs have never been patient creatures. So the fate of the orc gods is only a matter of time. And both Silver Flash and Mira know this very well. Some people may think that orcs never hide their emotions and are very innocent. But this does not mean that orcs are honest and reliable. On the war land that has been baptized by heavy artillery, before the flames and dust subsided, landing ships and airdrop pods began to fall one after another. They will take on the responsibility of cleaning up the remaining orcs on the surface and underground. War land is never a cheap commodity. The cornerstone of the plane alone is worth a lot of money. It can even be used as the foundation of the kingdom of God. Not to mention it also contains a lot of origin. So if it can be captured, it will definitely not be destroyed. As for the soldiers who sacrificed for this, after having the fast clone army, the Empire was already willing to sacrifice human lives. The Warhammer Legion equipped with the mortal version of the power armor has been able to stand alone. With heavy tanks as the core, it raises the mortal bolter and advances steadily. The most outstanding thing is the unstoppable momentum, beating the remaining orcs who tried to gather to a bloody pulp. Fly. However, when the clone army appeared, even the Warhammer Legion, as the Empire's ace army, had to make concessions for the other side. These equipment are unified with armor and standard weapons. The soldiers who are almost uniform in height, short, fat and thin are unusually silent. Even on the battlefield, they maintain a neat formation like a disease. Only after hearing the sharp whistle, they will launch a charge formation like a wave. But until this moment, he remained indifferent and said nothing. And his almost never-ending charge continued, as if he was searching for the meaning of life. The Warhammer Legion immediately deployed their formation, using artillery fire and strong firepower to provide cover for them, because they really couldn't catch up with these clone legions, who seemed to be born to chase death. Facing the incoming clone army, the remaining orcs ignored the internal injuries caused by the artillery fire and the bleeding ears, grabbed their battle axes and charged forward with wild bombardment. The orcs, who have been passively beaten, are eager to find enemies that can be hacked to death, instead of being bombarded by a steady stream of iron lumps. Compared to the orcs who are comparable in size to the Hulk, even if the clone soldiers are strengthened, their body size is within the range of normal humans. But they still charge without any hesitation, completely ignoring the strength gap between the two sides. The rifle with a bayonet in the hand, the cluster grenade on the waist, and even the explosives on the back are the bargaining chips for the clone army to be equal to the enemy, and also the meaning of their existence. When the two sides came into contact, the orcs, who had been suppressed for a long time, roared and jumped up with an angry blow. This blow was enough to split the city gate. But the clone army turned a blind eye and listened. The hand holding the gun did not waver at all, and the shining bayonet was pointed directly at the orcs. The key: it is obviously impossible to succeed against the orcs with a bayonet. But the dead clone soldiers have achieved their goal. The smoking cluster grenades in the hands of their comrades behind them are the best proof. Compared with the massive heavy artillery bombardment, the current hand-to-hand combat is more direct and bloody. And it also requires more courage. The courage to face death. What a terrible weapon! What an elite soldier! As an inspector, Silver Flash has been to countless planes, seen countless kingdoms, and witnessed countless wars. During this period, the wars and soldiers left a deep impression on him. There were quite a few, but none of them could give him such a shocking feeling as a god. Needless to say, the Imperial battleship. If he had not become a god, facing such a steel creation, he would probably be dead. And as if the clone army is chasing death, it has a terrible will to face fear. Unfortunately, the more powerful the warrior, the greater the attraction to the orcs, especially the orc gods. One day, the orc gods will be unable to bear it. As for casualties, the orcs don't care, and the orc gods don't care even more. So desperate resistance will never make the orcs give up. It will only make the orcs more excited. What a pity! Silver Flash shook his head pitifully and said, but why hasn't he heard of such a powerful force? And why is it so close to Owen's area? Just when the Silver Flash was confused, the fluctuation of divine power that impressed him deeply came. The rough and primitive taste that only pursued violence was so pure. Only the orc gods could possess divine power. And they finally couldn't help but intervene. The demigod war chief, who was half dead by heavy artillery, was still doubting his life in the crater when he felt the powerful power of the orc gods emerging from his body. This divine power is so strong that it is about to burst its body. Fortunately, the orcs are very compatible with the divine power of the orc gods. Not to mention that it is a demigod. The war chief's already extremely powerful body can be seen in the orcs. It swelled rapidly under the god's rough infusion, and eventually turned into a dark green muscle. It felt like spinach juice was used as intravenous saline, and 8 bottles were hung up in a row. The green one was called pure. By the time the Imperial Army discovered something was wrong, it was already too late. The orcs' divine power had already spread through the war chief, and tens of thousands of orcs were affected. The efficiency of the orcs' absorption and transformation of the divine power of the orc gods exceeded the Empire's expectations. Each one of them experienced an explosion in size and strength. Even the broken flesh and blood of the orcs were mixed with the fragments of the cornerstone of the war land and glued together, turning into dozens. A meter-high flesh puppet. Fire with full force, and cover the retreat of the ground troops. Shulia frowned, but did not panic. Of course, the Empire could not be naive enough to truly believe in the integrity of the orc gods. So it was already prepared for the intervention of the orc gods. But it did not expect the orcs. The gods were so good at seizing the opportunity, and they just happened to choose it after the two sides started a fierce hand-to-hand battle and were inseparable. Although the order was issued a little late, it is naturally best to reduce casualties. Chapter 644 War Titan. Amidst the continuous sound of artillery, the Imperial fleet adjusted its angle and fired one SHL after another at the place where the orcs and clone legions were entangled with each other. Regardless of the enemy or friend, it destroyed everything with the flames of death and formed an insurmountable line of defense, allowing the violent. Even the orcs have difficulty pursuing the Imperial army. Although cruel, it has to be said that it is the best choice, because it allows most of the Imperial soldiers to withdraw, and there is no need to leave more soldiers behind. As for whether they will feel resentful if they die at the hands of their own people, sorry, no. The clone army will only feel that their death has more value. Not to mention that the Emperor recognizes their sacrifice, and the door to the kingdom of God has been opened in front of them. The fierce artillery fire can only make ordinary orcs helpless. But it is too easy for the war chief, who is a demigod, and is now filled with the powerful power of the orc gods. Facing the soaring artillery fire, the war chief smiled crookedly and jumped up to 1,000 meters high, while jumping over all the artillery SHLs. He also landed on a Silver Shield heavy cruiser. Now there are not only 3 types of Golden Shield battleships, but also Silver Shield cruisers and strengthened heavy cruisers, which are larger and have more firepower than ordinary Silver Shield cruisers. But the 200-meter-long Silver Shield heavy cruiser sank suddenly at the feet of the war chief. It was in an unbearable posture. What was even more frightening was that the war chief punched down, and the explosive power directly caused the Silver Shield heavy cruiser to be protected. Shield overload. The shattered shield caused huge fluctuations, and sparks erupted from many lines inside the battleship, even affecting the power system. The entire battleship suddenly fell. If the design did not include emergency lines and reserve energy, just this punch can make a Silver Shield heavy cruiser fall. However, people who really know the data of the Silver Shield heavy cruiser will not be surprised by this, because the shield of the Imperial battleship is a composite type, with energy, magic, runes and alchemy, which are perfectly combined. Like the Silver Shield heavy cruiser, it can withstand a salvo from a battleship of the same caliber and destroy a shield of this level with one punch. You can imagine how powerful the war chief's punch is. Damn alien! Amidst the violent shaking, the captain of the Silver Shield heavy cruiser cursed fiercely, and then immediately ordered the ship's intelligence system to activate the automatic defense machine gun tower. and at the same time ordered the recall of the released Void Rover unmanned aerial vehicle, machine, under the control of the shipboard intelligence system. The machine gun tower hidden under the armor immediately popped up. The barrel extended, and the bullets were loaded. The first time it aimed at the war chief, who was trying to tear open the armor, was to fire violently. Bang, bang, bang. The large caliber machine gun bullets, which are enough to smash the heavily armored knights and their horses into pieces, are unable to penetrate the war chief's divinely powered flesh after hitting the target. It feels like jelly beans falling on a tire. Not to mention the damage. Even a little itchy. Faced with a mosquito-like harassment, the war chief ignored it, punched another punch, and punched a big hole in the 3-foot-thick outer armor of the Silver Shield heavy cruiser, and continued to tear it apart with his hand. The signal that the top armor was damaged was transmitted to the bridge, and the captain's face became increasingly ugly. Let the Void Wanderer knock this alien down, and immediately order the nearby soldiers to carry heavy weapons to the top cabin to prepare for battle. Shipboard Intelligent A012. With the captain's authority, unlock the Energy Core Protection Program. Increase the energy level, and be prepared for overload. The captain had prepared for the worst, because he blocked his soldiers from being able to tear apart the armor of the warship. The enemy had no hope, so they decided to detonate the energy core and die with the enemy through self-destruction, so as to prevent the battleship from crashing in vain. Should we intervene? Mira quietly flew to Silver Flash's ear and said, "Let's take a look first. If we intervene, the situation may get worse. The Orc gods won't care whether we are with these soldiers." Silver Flash narrowed his eyes and said to Mira, "This void has long been covered by subspace, so such a large-scale explosion of divine power cannot be hidden from Owen." However, although he knew that one day the Orc gods would be unable to resist taking action, he did not expect that it would be so soon, and that there would be 2 familiar gods there. "Char! Take 3,000 Thunder Guards and Titans to the Orc War land through the Rainbow Bridge." Owen guessed the purpose of Silver Flash and Mira, and was afraid that the 2 would interfere and make things worse, in case it triggers a war among the gods. It really didn't end well, so I issued an order. When the beam of light falling into the sky, not only Silver Flash and Mira, but also the war chief, who was cleaning up those annoying Void Wanderers like flies, turned their attention. Before the beam of light dispersed, 3,000 Thunder Guards wearing power armor launched an attack with terrifying speed and efficiency. Their heavy power armor was not a drag. The product of the Empire's high-precision technology was so inconvenient, but it was huge. Of assistance, the Ultramarines equipped with the indomitable Terminator power armor charged forward with heavy but fast steps, using thick armor and energy shields to resist damage, using the Storm-type twin-mounted heavy bolters fixed on their arms, and the heavy-duty bolters in their hands. The adamantine serrated chains word tells those orcs that times had changed. The more agile Thunder Warriors behind him flooded everything like mercury, smashing the heads of the orcs with explosive bombs, and cutting the flesh and blood of the orcs with their chain swords. Their violent and efficient fighting methods undoubtedly stabbed the orc gods in the heart. Witnessing this scene, Silver Flash and Mira began to secretly gasp, not daring to make a sound. However, the orc gods became increasingly restless. But they could not break the rules of the game. Otherwise no one would be willing to play with them. After playing, the orc gods, who had nowhere to vent their energy, began to fight each other. But soon the attention of the orc gods was focused on more exciting goals. 5 30-meter-tall steel giants walked out of the light pillar with heavy and steady steps. These were covered in thick metal armor and holding destructive weapons. They were war weapons built by the Empire based on the Titan units and heroes. War Titans. The original Titan is not much different from the enlarged human. But in order to adapt to the increasingly fierce war, the Scientific Research Center added thick armor, powerful weapons, and necessary energy shields. Otherwise it will only become a target on the battlefield. But in order to drive these added devices, the energy core, the overall frame, and the power device all have to be strengthened, which is equivalent to rebuilding one. Rebuilding means rebuilding. For today's Empire, the structure of a completely bionic human body is not suitable for war. At least not for large-scale construction. So the mechanical version of Titan appeared. The thick and stable leg structure makes Titan as stable as a mountain whether walking or fighting. The wide and thick upper body can not only carry heavy armor, but also accommodate huge energy and power systems. With top-notch artificial intelligence and modified operator, this is undoubtedly a destruction machine born for war. Chapter 645 Looking for a Dead End. The War Titan that appeared for the first time did not disappoint the Empire. As soon as it stepped out of the teleportation beam, It locked onto the orc flesh and blood colossus that threatened the most. These creations of the divine power of the orcs use the flesh and blood of the orcs as a medium, fused with the fragments of the cornerstone of the plane. They are tens of meters high and can shake the mountain with every step. They also retain the violent side of the orcs, so they can easily raze a city to the ground. However, war titans are built for this. The blazing energy core under the steel body surges with violent energy, but under the constraints of multiple positions and high-energy alloys, there is no leakage, and under precise control, the powerful energy is smoothly guided out and poured into it. In the accumulator, the volcano cannon fixed on the left arm of the war titan began to exert its power. The volcano cannon is one of the pinnacle creations of the Empire. It has the power to change the terrain. The base level is the forbidden curse level, and the upper limit is unknown. In contrast, the heavy artillery equipped by the Imperial fleet is only mass-produced goods, purely for the sake of volume, and cannot be compared with the precision-level volcanic cannon at all. At this time, in the huge muzzle, the red and sticky light is constantly rolling, accumulating more energy under the constraints of the force field. In theory, as long as the force field can keep up, and the alloy can hold up, the volcano cannon there is no upper limit to the power you can accumulate. Of course, this is just theory. So just before the heat warning is about to go off, the volcano cannon fires. The red flame sprayed out for more than 100 meters, and the huge vibration caused the 1,000-ton steel titan to pause for a moment. The energy fluctuations from the muzzle alone activated the titan's energy shield. This shows that this gun contains what a powerful force. However, the Empire's technology is astonishing, and the powerful binding force field allows the power of the volcanic cannon to shoot straight towards the target, instead of hurting itself. The huge orc flesh and blood colossus is like a moving fortress. Every step it takes will cause huge vibrations on the ground. It is extremely strong, but after being hit by the volcano cannon, it is like butter pierced by a red-hot iron rod. It quickly melted, and then the violent explosion flattened everything within a few kilometers. The ground was melted by the high temperature like glass, and the depression in the central area became like a volcanic crater. The hot magma was constantly churning, even if each shot requires a long period of time to cool down. The volcano cannon is still a well-deserved killer weapon. Ordinary artifacts may not be so powerful. The orc gods finally couldn't bear it anymore, and a piece of divine consciousness forcefully inserted into the war chief's mind, replacing his thinking, and the orc gods descended. The orcs are meant to cut down the biggest, toughest, and strongest enemies. The war chief, possessed by the orc gods, abandoned the imaginative silver shield heavy cruiser, and with one jump slash, he was about to kill the war titan. Enjoying the moment, can opener's fun. Even though the war titan has thick armor and an energy shield, it is positioned as a war machine, not a one-on-one dual king. Therefore, once the war chief tears open the hole and gets in, he will be like Sun Monkey in the Iron Fan. There is no difference in the princess belly. It must be gone. That's why Owen asked Seal to follow. As soon as Seal appeared in specially made power armor, the war chief gave up everything, holding 2 battle axes condensed with divine power, and stared at her eagerly. Before he became a god, Seal had received the most advanced biochemical transformation from the Imperial Scientific Research Center, and had refined various martial arts. His body shape was already different from that of ordinary people. Standing 3 meters tall, he was not much shorter when facing the bloated war chief. It's just that the war chief's body is thicker and thicker, like a metal pillar nailed into the earth, giving people an unshakable feeling. But it's useless. Any god is equal in front of Charles's double blades of chaos. The first collision between the two sides almost tore the war land apart. Even the cornerstone of the plane could not be held back by the wanton divine power. For this reason, the Imperial fleet had to evacuate urgently, leaving the battlefield to the two gods. The strength of the orc gods is of course higher than that of Char, but at this moment, it is in the state of divine descent. Even if the war chief is a demigod, there is an upper limit to his endurance, so he cannot exert his full strength and cannot overwhelm Char, who has many blessings. Coupled with the weapons condensed with divine power, they couldn't compete with the double blades of chaos that could kill gods. They eventually fell into a disadvantage, and were knocked out of the war land by a critical strike from Charles, and floated into the void. The void did not affect the battle between the two sides. The fierce collision continued. The burst of divine power fluctuations became more and more violent. Countless fragments floating in the void were shaken into powder, and quickly dissolved into the void, forcing Silver, Flash, and Mira to face each other, escape into the distance. And here they meet Owen. Why did you come here? Owen waved his hand. The shadows spread out to cover their figures. And then asked. Silver Flash gave a wry smile. And Mira even started crying before telling her what happened to them. Because they were victims. Silver Flash and Mira were not scrutinized for too long. So they did not fall together with the Green Land of Order. But they were not much better off. Silver Flash was targeted by his former enemies. The plane that believed in him was slaughtered. And the Kingdom of God was also broken up by the other party. If he hadn't run fast, he would have been split up long ago. Mira was about the same. Or worse. As a demon spirit, there were not many believers in her. The Kingdom of God was even smaller, and was directly smashed into pieces by the Orcs' war land. She ran away crying all the way. It's so miserable. Owen shook his head and expressed sympathy. But what sympathized with them even more was that they didn't even run to the right place. So he told them about his situation. Being surrounded by orcs, and being targeted by the orc gods. That's fine. But why are there void fruit forests around the Kingdom of God? And countless void zerg are on the way. This is going to be fatal. After listening, Silver Flash and Mira understood why Owen looked at them with such strange and sympathetic eyes. Is it too late to leave now? Mira asked tremblingly. If the orc gods don't descend, you still have a chance. But now, let alone the gods who are chasing you. The density of the orcs and void zerg alone will block your last chance of survival. Owen shook his head. He shook his head and said, Forget it. Since you can't run away, then fight with them. No one wants to die. And Silver Flash is no exception. But if there is no way to survive, he doesn't mind fighting. And besides, he can die with the Moon Princess. He is not at a loss either. Me too. Mira took out her treasured mead, took a big sip, and said decisively, Anyway, she had nothing to lose. Don't be so pessimistic. It will be difficult to win. But if I can hold on, I'm still a little bit sure. Owen is very calm. He is the master of the subspace. Unless the subspace is destroyed, he will never die. He is still busy now. He was busy coming and going. Mainly because he was reluctant to destroy the empire he had built with his own hands. And at the same time, he also wanted to see where the limits of the empire were. So as long as the empire doesn't give up, Owen will still try to help as much as possible. Such as cheating. And he is an expert in this area. Chapter 646, Fugue. The victory between the Char and the War Chief has been decided. But the orc gods who descended from the gods are not willing to give up. So they are still holding on. Just to take a few more beatings. Which shows how obsessed the orcs are with fighting. However, judging from the intermittent fluctuations in divine power, it is estimated that it will not last long. Because the opponent's body is most likely being violently beaten by other orc gods. It is not known whether it is because it broke the rules, or was beaten first. Of anger. After Owen devoted some of his energy to paying attention to the battlefield, he took Silver Flash and Mira to the Empire. There were bones and debris scattered everywhere along the way. Like a ghost land. It can be seen how high the concentration of matter in this area is. And it can be imagined how many people died here, and how many planes were destroyed. So that the void had no time to decompose. How many lives have died here? Silver Flash has also seen places destroyed by chaotic evil gods. But he has never seen such a large-scale scene. The orcs are the most numerous. There are probably several million dead. There are 7 or 8 in the war land alone. The Void Zerg army has not arrived yet. Only a few 100,000. There are also races such as the Dark Elves. As for the planes, there are almost 50. Most of them are demi-planes. And there are also many small planes. Owen has become numb to the number of casualties. And at the same time, he also understands that it doesn't matter how many people die. Now it's up to him to see who can survive to the end. There are so many dead. Why are there no undead? Mira asked curiously. Because large-scale death will cause the accumulation of negative energy and naturally produce undead. There is a god of death in my pantheon. Every time there is a war, he will come out to harvest the undead and clean up the breath of death. Otherwise, this place would have become a dead zone. Owen explained. After all, he didn't want to kill the living ones before beating them to death. Silver Flash was not surprised that Owen had a god system and a very rare god of death. Because he had met the Moon Princess sisters before and knew that there was a god system behind Owen. In addition, Owen's priesthood was the shadow of death. It didn't matter that there was another death god. Instead, Mira opened her mouth wide in surprise and was able to stuff a bean into it. I'm really envious that you have the divine system to help. Mira thought that Owen was able to persist until now because of the support of the divine system behind him. But she didn't know that the divine system was created by Owen. "Let's go! My plane is not far ahead," Owen said with a smile. When Owen took Silver Flash and Mira to the Empire, Seal also killed the war chief descended from God. Without the war chief as the medium of divine power, the orcs blessed by divine power also weakened. The orcs were tough and reckless, but that didn't mean they had unlimited physical strength. No matter how fervent their fighting spirit was, they still needed material support. So even their roars became weak, and they were wiped out by the Thunder Guards. The end of the war does not mean that everything is gone. In fact, the aftermath is more difficult than the start of the war. A large number of corpses will be gathered together and thrown into the void. The Mother Queen, who has been waiting for a long time, will drive the Zerg fleet to collect these rare proteins. At the same time, the scattered fragments will also be collected, just like scavengers and microorganisms, cleaning up the battlefield. Clean and tidy. This is just one of them. More Zerg fleets will be sent far away to clean up the battlefield, and even go to the chaotic area where Silver Flash and Mira are. As for the problem of encountering enemies, as long as the biomass replenished is greater than the biomass consumed, the Queen Zerg can defeat any opponent until the end of time. The still intact war land will be brought back by the Void Fleet. The source will be extracted, and the remaining foundation stones will be shattered. After being consumed by the Void, what is left will be valuable minerals, which will be sent to the industrial plane for processing. Deal with. But before that, the door to the kingdom of God opened, and countless ghost-like cats came to the material world. They ran in the void and jumped out of the gaps. The confused souls were led by the cats to the kingdom of eternal night, wherever they will be further distributed. Most of them will be able to get the life they want and live another life in the kingdom of God without leaving any regrets. This is the benefit of having a god of death in the pantheon. Otherwise, it would be a big problem to deal with the souls of believers who died on a large scale. You must know that gods are not omnipotent. Every miracle has a price. When the effort is greater than the gain, no matter how pious you are, when believers die in front of them, gods will remain indifferent. There are still very few people like Owen who treat believers well, even after death. Owen took Silver Flash and Mira to see a circle of battlefields, and after letting them understand the pressure the Empire was facing now, they came to the area where the Empire was located. When passing through the 8 plains, they felt the deep oppression and heaviness in the plains. Both Silver Flash and Mira frowned. Both of them, who prefer nature, are very sensitive to this, and do not like this kind of oppression that goes against nature. Regarding the matter of living beings, if you think about the situation you are facing now, you can only turn a blind eye, because if you cannot bear the pain, the only outcome is destruction. And they are not an example. Although the plane he believes in is well taken care of, and can be said to be in perfect harmony with nature, when facing the enemy, trees cannot block the enemy, art cannot block the sword, and only death and destruction are left. When Silver Flash and Mira sighed, the northern stars appeared in front of them. What a strange plane! How did you glue the 2 planes together? This was the first time for Silver Flash and Mira to have such a positive and negative plane structure. Some special skills, Owen said with a smile. And they didn't ask any questions. After all, there were some secrets that couldn't be told no matter how good the relationship was. Okay, let's go in. The North Stars have a very high limit. As long as you don't actively release your divine power, you won't be excluded. Owen opened the portal and invited them to enter. The plane rejects gods because the gods are too large and can easily cause irreparable damage to the plane. However, there are roots growing from the seeds of the world tree within the northern stars, and spiritual energy is spread all over the outside. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is a special kingdom of God, and the upper limit of its accommodation is naturally higher. The northern stars are divided into upper and lower sides. The mountain side has the best environment. In addition to the green continents and islands, the ocean is also full of vitality, so it serves as the Empire's health resort and academic center. The north side is a little worse, but the vast land is suitable for large-scale farming and industrial development. So the Empire's scientific research center and the most sophisticated manufacturing industry are all here. Considering Silver Flash's experience with Mira along the way, Owen took the 2 to the mountains to suit their mood with nature. The Empire built a spectacular and beautiful mountain city in the most beautiful place in the mountains. It is also the location of the Imperial Academy of Magic. It was said to be a magic school, but in fact, they studied psychic powers. This made Silver Flash and Mira feel a little uncomfortable because they had completely lost contact with the divine and magic networks since entering the Northern Stars. Chapter 647, Horses and Fairies Joining the Divine System. Now that the divine network has been destroyed, it is estimated that the magic network will not last long. In order to prevent someone from causing trouble through the divine network and the magic network, I have isolated it, Owen explained to Silver Flash and Mira. Don't let them mistakenly thinking that he is up to no good. This is also true. The two networks as a whole cannot be seized. But if they are divided, even the divine network can be seized of regional authority unless it is connected to the internet. Indeed, the divine network has been destroyed once. It caused a lot of trouble at that time. The goddess of magic is also the third generation. It is estimated that she will fall again this time. Mira, who has stayed in the Order Greenland all year round, knows a lot of things. She nodded and said in agreement. In addition, she was also frightened. So the safer the environment, the better. As for whether Owen would take the opportunity to catch her and play with her, it no longer mattered. Although Silver Flash felt that Owen was hiding something, it didn't matter to the current bad situation. So he had no intention of asking. But this was the first time Owen knew that in addition to the destruction of the divine network, the goddess of magic had not escaped and had fallen more than once. In fact, it is not surprising. The divine network can be destroyed, but the inner network, which is rooted in the basic laws of the material world, cannot, let alone seize its core authority. If you really have this ability, you have already entered the realm of the Creator. The magic network is different. To put it bluntly, it is a special network of divine power and laws built on the divine network. Not only is it not tough enough, it is also not safe enough. It is not impossible to hit people along the network cable. At least the magic goddess hiding behind has been caught. He has been beaten more than once, and he probably won't be able to escape this time. He will be caught sooner or later. Who makes the authority of the magic network too tempting? Don't worry. It's relatively safe here. Owen smiled and comforted Mira. He was quite confident about this. At worst, he could just open an eye of fear in the material world and let the gods of the material world see what was happening. What is called pollution? What is called fear? What is called despair? I really think subspace is something fun. There are very few restrictions on gods here. Is it because of spiritual power? Silver Flash shook his neck, his long mane shining like silver waves. He was very curious about the Northern Stars because he had never seen such a strange position. Faced with this, even the urge to see the Moon Princess was suppressed. Well, psychic energy is everywhere here, and psychic energy is very adaptable to divine power. So there are not many restrictions on gods. Not to mention that I have given you permission, Owen said, and led the two of them into the mountain palace. Semi-isolated from the outside world, there are almost no restrictions on gods, allowing them to relax more. These are the Golden Apple Tree and Moon Spring, which can replenish your consumption. Owen pointed to the small garden in front of him and said to the two of them, the gods have long been free from the restrictions of mortal things, which also makes it difficult for them to replenish their consumption. At least not by eating ordinary things. Faith is good, but only by believing in their faith can they be absorbed and transformed. Otherwise, why would the gods bother to preach? In addition, you can also directly absorb the divine power given by other gods. But generally no gods will do this, because the divine power has already been transformed and imprinted by absorption. So absorbing the divine power given by other gods feels like absorbing the other party's body fluids. As for whether it's milk or saliva, that's a matter of opinion. It's not a good experience anyway. The quality of the golden apples and Moon Springs was very high, and they were good nourishing even for gods. Therefore, Silver Flash began to drink, while Mira held the golden apples and gnawed them hard. Judging from their posture, these two people could not reach the point where the lamp died. Even when the oil is exhausted, it consumes a lot. Gods are not perpetual motion machines. Normal consumption is fine, but once divine power is used, it will really use less. Unfortunately, their plane of faith and the kingdom of God were destroyed. The former was a place that provided faith, and the latter was a place that stored faith. If they were all gone, they could only rely on their own reserves. How long could they last? It's so chaotic outside now. Do you want to join my divine system? Owen ate the golden apple, thought for a while, and then said to Silver Flash and Mira, for these two people, Owen's senses are quite good, and they each have their own strengths. In addition, this is the situation outside now, so he can try to win over each other. So he said, I have no problem. The green land of order is gone. My kingdom of God and the plane of faith are also destroyed. And now I have nowhere to go. Silver Flash said to Owen after getting drunk. I'm also willing to join, Mira said as she hurriedly climbed up from the golden apple, holding her bulging belly. She is even more pitiful than Silver Flash. Not only has she been a pendant all the way, but she can't play any role now. She is really afraid of being abandoned. Then she won't even have the chance to be a handler. Okay, now I will take you to the kingdom of God. With the addition of 2 divine talents, the divine system became stronger and stronger. Owen smiled and nodded, and then opened the door of the kingdom of God. Suddenly, the breath of faith and nature emerged, making the silver shine. He cheered up with Mira. Owen brought them to the kingdom of light, and this place also fits their attributes. Nowadays, the kingdom of God has become extremely vast. Even the kingdom of light, which is only a part of the kingdom of God, has an area comparable to that of a large plain and is full of natural and peaceful atmosphere. Is there a unicorn here? Silver Flash said in surprise, as if he sensed something. There are not just unicorns. Owen smiled and led them deep into the forest, because the situation in the material world was so bad. Owen felt it and moved Ponyville to the light plane, and incorporated more fairy tale and animation elements to create a perfect and harmonious paradise. And the Space Princess sisters are here. Asylum. Speaking of fairy tales, unicorns and fairies are indispensable. And there are many types. Silver Flash was dumbfounded by the unicorns from different worlds, especially the existence of Ponyville, which made him wonder if he was a fake unicorn god. But everything disappeared after seeing the Moon Princess. Silver Flash rushed forward without any trace of fatigue, and was kicked away by the Moon Princess with a roar. Although Princess Moon has a loud voice and always maintains the appearance of a princess, she is shy and introverted at heart. She can't control her temper only when facing the Silver Flash, and she always wants to kick something, such as a certain horse. Unicorn face. When Owen turned around, Mira was already playing with the goblins here, playing hide and seek in the flowers, going to the beehive to steal honey, and being chased by the bees. That heartless look was the only spirit of this goblin. True temperament. The goblin itself is innocent and lively. But Mira, who became a god by chance, has to bear a weight that she should not bear. So although she became a god, she has never been happy. Now that she has lost everything in the past, it may not be a relief for her. So it doesn't matter whether she is a god or not, and whether she can develop faith or not. If Mira were given the choice, she would rather be an ordinary goblin who would dissipate like dewdrops in the first ray of sunshine one morning, ending her happy and simple life. Lifetime. Chapter 648, The Sleeping Body and Big Trouble. I am happy here and don't miss you. Silver Flash and Mira happily followed Owen to the World Tree to transform their origins, and completely join this big family. The pantheon I belong to has never limited believers to only believe in one god. In fact, most believers will choose to believe in multiple gods, which also facilitates the integration of faith into all aspects of life. Owen explained the pantheon to Silver Flash and Mira. The special thing about it is that it is not forced. But as long as you believe in it, you can always find the right one. Wouldn't this make the faith impure? Mira asked, although she wanted to go find those goblins and continue playing. But it was more important to join the big family in front of her now. No, our divine system is self-contained, and the beliefs will be unified and purified before being distributed. Owen took out some divine power crystals. As expected, they had no attributes or impurities, and were very pure. If you complete the transformation and truly become a member of the divine system, you will also gain the divine power corresponding to the priesthood, making it easier to absorb, Owen said, taking them to the world tree that spans the subspace, the kingdom of God, and the material world. Down. Now it is difficult to see the whole world tree. Just a corner of the tree roots fills their sight, let alone the whole. I am willing to join the divine system and transform my origin. An old voice suddenly came from Myra's backpack sewn with leaves. It was the tree elder who only retained an oak fruit clone after losing his body. This person pretended to be dead all the way, and now he suddenly spoke. Naturally, because he felt the existence of the world tree. Of course. Owen, who had known the other party's existence for a long time, smiled, took the oak nut from Mira, and put it on the world tree. Because he did not retain much divinity, Shu Lao eventually transformed into an oak spirit. It is not known how long it will take to regain his original strength. However, Shu Lao was very satisfied and did not go anywhere. He just took root at the foot of the world tree, like an inconspicuous weed under the 1,000-year-old tree. You must know that the world tree is in a mezzanine. There is no air, no space, and even no life. For any intelligent life, it is tantamount to an endless H.L. But for Xu Lao, this is paradise. His origin is always approaching the world tree. He may never reach the level of the world tree. But for plants, they are willing to indulge in it forever. With Xu Lao as a precedent, Silver Flash and Mira had nothing to hold on to. So they laid down one after another, and let the world tree infect and transform their origins. Compared with Owen's pantheon of gods, which had a brighter future, they were just lost dogs. It's good to have a place to stay. There's nothing to be picky about. Not to mention that what they see and hear in the kingdom of God is perfectly in line with everything they hoped for. But when their origins began to transform, in the process, they finally understood why Xu Lao's choice was so decisive. The vastness and richness of the material world cannot be compared to the current Owen's pantheon. But the vastness of the material world also incorporates many harmful and decadent things. Like a quagmire. No matter how much you try to break free, you will only end up sinking deeper and deeper into the quagmire. Before the transformation, Silver Flash had no feelings for Mira. However, after the transformation, they got rid of the restrictions given to them by the material world. And they felt the difference between the two. Let Silver Flash and Mira transform here safely. Owen went to the Kingdom of Eternal Night to inspect the work, which was busy due to the previous war. War is never just a matter of fighting. At this time, the Empire mobilized thousands of people to handle the aftermath, repair the fleet, replenish supplies, rest and recuperate soldiers, and mobilize troops. These are not just numbers. They require a large number of manpower to carry out supervision and implementation. At the same time, according to the latest instructions, the Imperial fleet will gather the corpses left by the orcs, and then use them as fertilizer, and throw them into the nearby void fruit. In fact, it has already become the nest of the Queen Mother Zerg, waiting to be fed. When the time comes, it will pop out and give everyone a big surprise. The Empire already has a complete set of procedures for dealing with the aftermath. But the Kingdom of God, which is ushering in the wave of undead, is still busy at this time. Angel, the goddess of death, is in charge of the Kingdom of Eternal Night, and is the well-deserved god of death in the Empire. After the messenger of the cat goddess brings back the undead, she needs to make a judgment and decide where the souls of believers go. Thanks to the Empire's loyalty education, the vast majority of believers can receive a good treatment. And this is what they deserve. Here, they can choose to stay in the Kingdom of Eternal Night and enjoy a peaceful sleep, or go to the Kingdom of Light to live a new life. Some of them want to continue to serve the Emperor and the Empire in the Kingdom of God. These angels will not refuse anyone who comes. And the heritage of the Kingdom of God will continue to increase. As for some unqualified sinners, they will be thrown into purgatory to receive punishment. And those with unforgivable sins will become fuel. And everything will be in order. Although Irving is here and can't help much, it's enough to show your face that the leader is paying attention to you. At least, he will fulfill his responsibilities as a leader. Then Owen went to the subspace to find the true body. Owen's body has been staying in the subspace because the expansion of the subspace is too fast. Especially after the material world fell into chaos. The speed of the expansion of the subspace made him feel uncomfortable as the master. So he had to hand over some authority to the two. In each incarnation, the main body has been sleeping in the subspace in order to quickly adapt to changes. In the sleeping state, the consciousness of the main body will instinctively follow the expansion of the subspace. This is the fastest and best way to adapt to and control the subspace. The disadvantage is that if no one wakes him up, he may remain asleep unless there is a huge fluctuation in the subspace. The problem is that with the current size of the subspace, unless the material world explodes, it will be too difficult to wake him from his sleep. So Owen asked the two avatars to come over and say low from time to time in case he slept too deeply. After spending some time awakening part of the sleeping consciousness of the main body, the L-Sage incarnation began to sort out the information obtained from the main body. It's not right to say it's intelligence. The perception of the body is the reflection of the material world in the subspace. Theoretically, anything that happens within the confines of subspace cannot be hidden from Owen's body. The only question is whether he has seen it. That is to say, in theory he is omniscient and omnipotent. But in fact the only limitation on him is himself. After sorting it out, although it is not detailed enough, we can see the general situation of the current material world. Because the Empire pursued the orcs fiercely, it suddenly opened a gap in the siege of the orcs. This is also related to the lack of unified command among the orcs. The movement of the orcs in the void is entirely supported by the orcs' divine power, unlike other races that have their own methods and vehicles. In this case, no matter how powerful the orc gods are, and no matter how fanatical the orc belief is, there is a limit, which makes it seem that the Empire is surrounded by orcs. However, due to factors such as route, distance, time, etc., the orc encirclement is more like a fueling tactic. In other words, as long as the Empire is destroyed quickly enough, it will never be surrounded by orcs. If there weren't too many orcs and the Empire had a huge attraction for orc gods, there would be no need to worry about this. After all, with the clone army, the Empire will be less afraid of wars of attrition as it progresses to the later stages. But now the threat of the orcs is only one of them. When Owen saw the void Zerg figures becoming more and more densely covered in the subspace, he knew that the biggest trouble was coming. Chapter 649 Zerg Fleet. With the reproduction ability of the void Zerg, any conventional tactics are useless. Even using divine power to clear the field is useless. There are too many and the area is too wide. Even someone as powerful as the God King cannot release his divine power all the time, let alone said to cover the void. In addition, so what if it is destroyed? Divine power cannot completely eliminate matter, because divine power itself is a power extended from the material world. So it is stronger than divine power, but it can only smash matter more finely than ordinary attacks. With the special environment of the void, sooner or later these substances will converge somewhere. And as long as the matter is still there, through devouring and transforming, the number of the void Zerg will continue to increase. And there is simply no solution. Therefore, if you want to completely defeat the void Zerg, the key is not how destructive it is. Because you can't defeat the void Zerg that has evolved for countless generations even if you use up your consumption. The real key to victory is the conversion rate. Whoever has a higher conversion rate will have more quantity. The winner will naturally be the party with more quantity. Because once the quantity takes advantage, it is only a matter of time before it devours the weak. This is why Owen took the risk of losing control to create the Mother Queen. Because only the Zerg can deal with the Zerg. After Owen successively provided more genetic race samples, the Mother Queen has gradually left the scope of the Zerg and begun to climb towards the pinnacle of biological civilization. All things are unified. All things are transformed into one. This will be the final path of the Queen Mother. At this time, the Queen Mother had completed her first transformation under the nutrient-rich feeding of the Empire, and had given birth to a sizable Zerg fleet. The two Zerg genes from the system are the overlords of the universe. There are simply not too many various Zerg fleet templates. After devouring a few void creatures to obtain genetic samples, the newly born Zerg automatically possesses the ability to survive in the void. This is the Zergs. The scary thing is that upgrading is just like playing. It is so strong that it is completely unreasonable. The fleet, composed of hundreds of large and small Zerg warships, is making final additions. Their wide and ferocious mouthparts are devouring the void fruits, and their unreasonably powerful digestive organs transform the substances between virtual and real into more convenient. The biomass used can quickly breed new Zerg. At the same time, it is also fuel and repair material for the Zerg fleet. As long as there is enough biomass, the Zerg can fight forever. But the powerful digestion ability almost emptied the fruit, and this obviously violated the rules of the Order Camp. But at this time, the Order Camp had already retreated to the inner network, allowing the material world to fall into chaos. Now planes are being destroyed every moment. So this matter is not a big deal at all. No one cares about it. And no one asks about it until when the damage is almost done. The Order Camp will reappear to maintain order and allow the traumatized material world to breathe new life. Just like they did in the past. With the supplement of a large amount of nutrients, the egg uterus, densely packed like a honeycomb inside the Zerg warship, began to breed a large number of Zerg troops. Flying Zerg, heavy Zerg, individual fighting Zerg, melee combat, long-range attack, auxiliary. All kinds of Zerg are dazzling, and they are fully able to adapt to various environments and wars. The most outrageous thing is that these bugs will constantly adjust to the enemy according to the situation, and even build sub-bases to explode troops during the war, eventually crushing everything and devouring everything. So what looks like a Zerg fleet is actually a destroyer that can continue to spread, if it is not controlled. It is only a matter of time before the world is destroyed. In order to prevent this Zerg fleet from getting out of control, the Queen Mother specially cultivated a brain worm. Except for a few giant and specially prepared Zerg, the vast majority of Zerg have no self-awareness. Even if they do, it has been weakened layer by layer. More Zerg have only set instincts. because they are only an insignificant part of the huge size of Zerg. Doing so would leave the Zerg without the ability to adapt, even though the Zerg doesn't need it. However, the main reason for doing this is to reduce the variables, because the greater the number, the greater the variability. Even if the Zerg gene editing ability is very powerful, if the number increases infinitely, there will inevitably be some bizarre incidents of individual or group betrayal. That's why the Mother Queen will cultivate a brain worm as a brain for a Zerg fleet. If the fleet is expanded, and additional brains and subbrains are installed, there will still be only one main consciousness in the overall thinking network, and the others are all executors. This way minimize the chance of Zerg awakening or rebellion. After being cultivated and matured, the brain worm separated from the Mother Queen showed its unique appearance. The huge creature that looks like a brain flower covering several acres looks very weird, like a tofu brain floating in the vacuum, giving people the tender feeling of poking a hole. In fact, the seemingly delicate brain worm is not without self-preservation ability. The psychic energy that is so powerful that it makes the space tremble is the most powerful ability of the brain worm. At this moment, the brain worm floated like a jellyfish under the influence of its own powerful spiritual energy, and was about to get into the largest Zerg warship. This 1,000-meter-long giant Zerg warship is not the largest Zerg unit that the Mother Queen can breed. However, the purpose of this fleet is to collect data, so it is not important whether it is perfect or not, and its combat effectiveness is not important. At least for now. It is already enough, and there is no need to continue to strengthen it. After all, the Void Zerg also has the ability to evolve quickly. Sensing the arrival of the brainworm, the giant Zerg warship reacted excitedly. The carapace, which was more than 10 meters thick, quickly unfolded layer by layer under the action of complex muscle bundles. Pink muscle channels full of mucus were displayed in front of the brainworm, waiting for it. Enter. And this is also its greatest honor as a Zerg warship. A brainworm that lacks protection is fragile, so it immediately uses its psychic energy to stuff its huge and soft body into the channel, and slides deeper with continuous wriggling. In the deepest part of the giant Zerg warship, there is a huge cavity specially set up for the cerebrate, filled with a viscous liquid rich in nutrients. This is the cerebrate's restaurant and its studio. The genetic samples collected by the Zerg fleet, as well as problems encountered by the outside world, will be gathered here. The brainworms will make more targeted responses according to different situations, such as cultivating more suitable Zerg, generating new Zerg units, and even set up new sub-bases to blast troops and more. When everything was ready to be completed, under the order of the Mother Queen, the cerebrates released powerful spiritual energy to lead the Zerg fleet into the subspace and move towards the nearest void insect group. The eager look clearly showed the greedy side of the Zerg. Owen, who was in the subspace, also set off a wave of psychic energy, pushing the Zerg fleet to speed up and helping the Zerg. Owen knows very well that he must not let the Void Zerg form a complete encirclement just like he did with the Orcs. Otherwise, when the Zerg are surrounded from all directions, the Empire will not be able to stop the siege by cheating. It can only continue to intercept and completely tear the Void apart. The Zerg encirclement is the best way. Chapter 650, Zerg War. It didn't take long for the Queen Zerg fleet to reach its destination quickly with the help of the Psychic Tide. In front of them were tens of thousands of hungry Void Zerg. There is no false temptation in the meeting between the two Zerg, because only the naked hatred between peers is the same for the Zerg. There can only be one world eater in this world. So a war between Zerg and Zerg has no the most intense collision is the beginning of any prelude. Facing the swarming Void Zerg, the numerically disadvantaged Queen Zerg warship did not panic at all. It first sent a few peripheral Zerg warships into the nearby plane base, and then released a large number of flying Zerg units to block the opponent's delay. The Zerg warship lifted up its thick carapace, revealing the dense holes underneath. The structure was like a honeycomb made of soft-bodied creatures. It was still contracting and squirming like breathing. It was the kind that would make people with intensive phobia wipe their necks. And then strings of bugs squeezed out from inside. Come out. Spread your wings quickly in the void. Wait for the wings to harden, and immediately fly towards the Void Zerg. Depending on the division of labor, these Queen Flying Zerg used acid that melted iron, self-exploding stingers, various parasitic spores, and predators that looked like exposed intestines to launch tentative attacks on the Void Zerg. Although the methods are strange and changeable, the essence remains the same. Destroy the enemy, recycle biomass, evolve in a targeted manner, and then constantly adjust and explode until the opponent is completely devoured. This is the Zerg's fighting method. Simple but unpretentious. But the scene is really ugly, or terrifying. Countless weird bugs are crowded together and constantly gnawing at each other's bodies. Some bodies are mutilated, but their ferocious mouthparts are still gnawing at each other's bodies. Even in the blink of an eye, the chewed pieces will fall out from the leaking intestines of the half-body, and even attract new predators to start chewing from the intestines, and still have no intention of stopping. The purpose of these queen flying zergs was clear from the beginning: to delay time. As long as there was time, victory would be on their side. At this time, the queen zerg warship that landed in a nearby plane had begun to dissolve, extending a large area of carpet and building a hatchery. The carpet is the farmland of the queen zerg. The fungal organisms that make up the carpet can devour and decompose all organic and inorganic matter. In other words, they are devouring the world and then converting them into nutrients and necessary additives to provide a continuous supply of raw materials for the hatchery. Hatch new zerg. This devouring transformation is irreversible. The moment the plane disappears, countless insect swarms will start again and head to the next target. But it has just begun. When the worker bees crawl out of the hatchery and fly into the air, the countdown to destruction begins to accelerate, because the worker bees can collect resources from further away, speeding up the spread of the carpet and the improvement of the hatchery. In the void, when the first batch of flying zerg units released by the zerg warships were almost dead, the eggs reserved in the cavity were also rapidly matured, continuously replenishing the lost troops. And nearby sub-bases also gave birth to new ones. The flying zerg began to add in, bringing the battle into a continuous stalemate. This is enough. The Cerebrate is constantly debugging the collected Void Zerg genes with extremely high efficiency. After deciphering the genes of the Void Zerg, the newly born Mother Zerg obtained organs that can absorb and convert the Void Zerg biomass more quickly. And it can also produce targeted biotoxins to poison the Void Zerg that eats the Mother Zerg. Already divided. Although the Void Zerg also has the ability to evolve quickly, they have not evolved an efficient brain like the cerebral worm. And they do not have Zerg warships and sub-bases like biochemical factories. Their efficiency is lower, and their systems are more backward. As the main force for reproduction, the insect queen needs to devour a large number of enemy bodies to mutate herself, and then build a nest to enter the reproductive state, so that she can give birth to new Zerg species to respond. This model is undoubtedly a cheat for other races in the material world. But for the two Zerg races that have experienced a long and cruel universe-level war, it is almost childish. It is too slow and too inefficient. It's not that the Void Zerg are too weak, but that the environment they are in is different. The two major Zerg genes in the Queen Mother have experienced endless cosmic wars. In order to survive, they have evolved for countless generations. The Void Zerg are different. Their superhuman absorption, conversion and reproduction speed alone are enough for them to dominate the material world. Therefore, without external pressure, the potential of the Void Zerg has not been fully realized. In this case, no matter how fast the Void Zerg evolves, it will not take thousands of years to catch up with the Zerg genes possessed by the Queen Mother, because this is the overall backwardness, from genes, structure, division of labor, etc. aspect. Although genetic samples can be supplemented by gnawing at the Mother Zerg, the problem is that the division of labor of the Mother Zerg is too thin. Just obtaining some fragments is not enough for the Void Zerg to turn defeat into victory, but it can easily leave serious hidden dangers, and this takes time. But the Cerebrates will not give the opponent time. So even though they do not have an advantage in numbers, they still continue to fill the front line, just to prevent the Void Zerg from taking action. The Void Zerg know nothing about this, because they have not formed a main consciousness. As the Mother Insect Queen, they still rely on inefficient pheromones to command the huge insect swarm. Therefore, they are miserably plagued by the brain worms. Now they are the Mother Queen Zerg, suppressing the Void Zerg to gnaw. This is caused by the difference in efficiency. Unfortunately, this is not isolation. The Void Zerg scattered into countless swarms all over the material world do not have a unified command. So the death of one swarm does not have the slightest impact on other swarms, let alone a warning. And they still know nothing. Flew in the intended direction. Having just wiped out a Void Zerg and about to face more enemies, the Cerebrates did not panic. Although the Zerg have always played the role of invaders, defensive warfare is also what the Zerg is good at. Under the command of the cerebral worm, a large number of Zerg warships dispersed to nearby planes, devouring and transforming everything with ultra-high efficiency. Each plane became a Zerg nest, and a steady stream of Zerg flew out. In the coming void, a fierce war broke out among the Zerg tribe, and the entire void was scattered with residual limbs and carapace belonging to the Zerg tribe. However, these materials would soon be recovered by the Zerg collectors, who were responsible for collecting them and transported to the Zerg nest to be converted into nutrients and recycled. Breed more Zerg. During this period, the Queen Zerg fleet was not all smooth sailing. In fact, if it encountered a void Zerg that was too large, it would be almost eaten up before it could be drawn into a war of attrition. However, the cerebral insects have already built countless bases in the surrounding plains. As long as one Mother Zerg is missing, a huge Mother Zerg group will appear in a short time, which is simply inexplicable. Chapter 651 Preparations without finding the right direction. Soon, a large amount of biological information was transmitted to the Mother Queen, and then it was split up. Everything about the Void Zerg was thoroughly understood, and it was even possible to carry out multiple optimizations on the original basis. It can be said that the Mother Queen can now give birth to a Void Zerg that is more authentic and terrifying than the Void Zerg, and even they themselves cannot distinguish it, including the Queen of the Void. So a new Zerg fleet is bred that is more targeted. After eating the Void fruit to replenish their inventory, the huge biological warships entered the subspace under the leadership of the brain worms and set off towards their respective destinations. As a result, a fleet of Mother Emperor Zerg fleets were spread out in all directions like nails, firmly pinning the void insect swarm that wanted to invade the Empire area. The battle with the Queen Zerg plunged the Void Zerg into chaos. Because they had never encountered such an enemy before, they could not match the opponent in any aspect. Even if they had a numerical advantage, they would only gain the advantage for a period of time, and then quickly will become the one being eaten. On the battlefield between the two Zerg tribes, the entire void was filled with the sounds of insects eating the Zerg tribes. There was the crisp sound of chewing on the Zerg tribe, the sticky sound of absorbing body fluids, and the instinctive chirping of insects. The swarms of void insects that had always been domineering were forced to stop and chose to start a positional war. They also invaded nearby plains and built insect nests through devouring them, preparing for a protracted war. The Void Zerg, which was forced out of its potential by the Mother Zerg, broke out. They were always eating the invaded plain. Biology was the best choice, followed by plants, and the last was detritus. With the supplement of a large amount of nutrients, the abnormally fat insect queen breeds more and more Void Zerg regardless of the cost. Every day, a large number of mature Void Zerg can be seen flying out of the invaded plain and joining the never-ending Zerg in the Void battle. But it was useless. The Queen Zerg that had completed targeted evolution were hunting the Void Zerg like natural enemies. Their attacks were more like door-to-door delivery, and they did not require payment. Now the Void Zerg devours the biomass and origin of the plains along the way, and then delivers it to the doorstep in the form of war. Therefore, every time a war starts, the Mother Queen fleet responsible for recycling biomass will be stretched out, and the biological chambers used as cargo holds will be full, slightly deformed. It looks like a plump cell that has absorbed sufficient nutrients, and these biomass will soon be transformed into a new Mother Queen Zerg after being transported back. In fact, if the Mother Queen hadn't hidden most of the troops according to Owen's wishes, the current military strength would have been enough to launch a counterattack against the Void Zerg, allowing the other party to see what a real Zerg hegemony is. However, Irving, who has long been accustomed to being stubborn, will never show all his strength. He will show 1 or 2 points of 100% strength, allowing people to see that he has hidden 3 to 5 points, and to guess 7 or 8 points. The last ones are the layers. Trump card. This strategic thought has also affected the Mother Queen. Therefore, in addition to hiding the core Queen Mother to suppress her ultimate move, even the developed insect swarms are mostly hidden, just like blind boxes, hidden in every corner of the material world, waiting for the fate people turn on. In fact, this is mainly related to Owen's unclear understanding of the situation in the material world. He doesn't believe that the Order camp really does nothing, even if it does nothing on the surface. He doesn't believe that the same is true secretly. He is probably holding back his big move and preparing to clean up the mess afterwards. Otherwise, it would be giving up the right to rule the material world. In addition, despite the chaos of the chaotic evil gods, the real forces of the chaotic evil camp have not really exerted their strength yet. And what is their purpose? Owen does not know what this drama with the material world as the stage is about. He also didn't know which one it was. So even though he had the ability to solve the current predicament in one fell swoop, Owen only let the Empire exert its power and did not interfere too much himself. This is done to hide oneself and not be regarded as a variable that needs to be kicked out in advance by those behind the scenes. But the current Owen is no different than before, with subspace as a fallback route and the capital to overturn the table. Some of his plans have become more aggressive. Now he has laid some groundwork, and is just waiting to be unleashed. Under Owen's reasonable cheating, the Empire grew faster and faster. By merging the unformed void fruits around it, the northern stars have grown to the level of the main plane. It still has two sides, upper and lower, and is much thicker. It feels like a rugby ball. But there is still a long way to go before it can build a sphere and become a real planet. Let's go! According to Owen's estimation, at least dozens of main plane levels need to be fused together to form. Otherwise, if a sphere is forcibly constructed, the horizon will be all downhill at a glance. If there is another problem with gravity, the fall will roll around the planet. One lap. Besides, Owen doesn't know whether the laws of the material world can support the emergence of planets. After all, a flat plane and a spherical planet are two different things. And the difference in mass is even greater. If the relevant laws of gravity and gravity cannot keep up, the planet will probably be destroyed as soon as it is formed. It will fall apart. Therefore, it must be done through experiments and trials. So a large amount of resources are also poured into the 8 outer planes of the northern stars. They will become satellites of the northern stars in the future, and are also the experimental products of many attempts. The Empire's peace did not last long. In fact, on the outskirts of the Empire, the war with the orcs and Void Zerg never stopped, with tens of thousands of casualties every day. If the Empire hadn't built more and more clone hives in the Void Fruit, and the industrial plane had become more and more complete, I'm afraid it would have been unable to hold on for a long time. Even so, it was barely able to maintain the front line and not retreat. However, it seems rare for the orc gods to find such a satisfactory toy, and they have always maintained a state of entanglement with the Empire, and have taken turns to descend from the gods. Although he was looked down upon, Owen was more willing to maintain this state, letting Seal and Joan of Arc take turns leading the Ultramarines to attack, trying to avoid expanding the scale and depth of the war. But the Empire was only a remote corner of the material world and had little impact. So what was supposed to happen still happened. Dozens of ancient gods sealed in the material world have broken away from the seal, and have caused large areas of pollution. And because the Order camp has retreated to the inner network, the pollution is still spreading, and there is no hope of governance. After hearing the news, even Owen changed his expression, and even thought that the evil and chaotic camp was crazy. The ancient gods don't care whether you are a god of order or an evil god. Everything is an object of devouring pollution. Moreover, the powerful pollution of ancient gods is not that simple. What they cause is not simple destruction. Even the remaining substances cannot get rid of the pollution. And this kind of pollution is difficult for even evil gods to bear. Therefore, the Order camp has always been strictly guarded against the ancient gods. Once they discover that an ancient god is broken away from the seal, they will immediately send gods to deal with it. And the evil gods will not deliberately stop them, even if they release the ancient gods. Releasing the ancient god was only a means, not an end. This gave Owen a vague suspicion that his previous preparations did not seem to be in the right direction. Chapter 652. The material world is about to explode. This is the current situation in the material world. Who released the ancient god, and what is the purpose? Now we don't know anything. This is too passive. Owen rubbed his eyebrows and said to Silver, Flash, and Mira, they are the ones who know the situation in the material world best in the entire Pantheon. So I chatted with them to see if I could get any useful information. As the most ancient god, the ancient gods are full of aggression towards all non-ancient gods, not to mention the terrifying pollution. So even the most evil gods would not do such a thing. This is simply crazy. Dozens of ancient gods, who have escaped from the seal, will destroy the entire material world. And no god or force can get any benefits from it. Silver Flash said with a wrinkled face. And at the same time he felt huge pressure. He had just found love. The material world will be destroyed? Maybe we should go ask Mr. Shu. Mira, who was fiddling with the pedals in her hand and looking sad, suddenly thought of something and said to Owen, Huh? How come I forgot about Shu Lao? Silver Flash said suddenly, because Shu Lao is the oldest among them, and many of today's secrets are just the daily life it has experienced. Because Shu Lao stayed under the world tree as soon as he arrived. Even Owen ignored him. So after being reminded by Mira, he took one of the other's acorns. I know the reason. Shu Lao is indeed the oldest god in the Order Greenland, and he actually knows it. Shu Lao doesn't like to move, but because of his ability to improve the environment and increase the upper limit of space, he has always existed as the guardian of the Land of Order. And because of its special ability, as long as one tree species remains, it can be reborn. Therefore, Even after the destruction of the land of order many times, the old tree still exists. And its existence is much longer than Silver, Flash, and Mira know. And it also so you know more secrets. They are fighting for the initial realm, which involves the origin of the material world. And I was just a tree species in the initial realm. I was accidentally brought out by an ancient god and became a god. What Xu Lao said shocked Owen. If calculated this way, Xu Lao's age is simply incalculable. I am not the original me. I became the God King in the beginning. But I fell, and did not leave any origin. There is only a tree species affected by divine power that retains some marks. Or shadows. So I think I am me. Xu Lao's words are a bit convoluted. Generally speaking, that person is dead. As a person who retains a little shadow, I think it is correct. Owen did not refute Xu Lao's words, but took the opportunity to ask about the initial world. Because only some shadows were left. Xu Lao knew little about the initial world. He only knew that it was an unformed world, and was the true origin and root of the material world. All laws in the material world currently originate from the root laws of the initial world, and are extended on this basis. The so-called internetwork is only the embodiment of the root laws of the initial world. Therefore, as long as you control the authority of the internet, you can control the initial world. And at the same time, the entire material world will also become within your grasp. Therefore, seeing that the situation is difficult to deal with, the Order Camp will transfer the main force back to the internet, because they know very well that as long as the Order Camp still holds the main authority over the internet, and the material world will return to their hands sooner or later. As for the chaos in the material world, it doesn't matter at all. Matter will not disappear. At worst, it will be destroyed entirely, and then wait for new void fruits to be born. However, the evil and chaotic camp is not willing to give in, because their main base is in the material world. They want to force the Order Camp to compromise and release some internet permissions. To this end, they do not hesitate to release the ancient gods as a threat, because once the ancient gods lose control, even the material world restarting cannot remove the contamination of the ancient gods. This is a lose-lose situation. These are all Xu Lao's guesses, but Owen feels that they are most likely true, because he not only used his body, but also used the power of subspace to push the power of the galaxy to perform calculations, completing a huge calculation. According to Owen's calculations, the initial realm plus the material realm is a complete point. Originally, a new universe would be formed after a complete big explosion. But the explosion was interrupted. Just like an egg. The egg shell is broken and the egg white is scattered. However, the egg yolk with the highest nutritional value has been retained, which leads to the incompleteness of the material world. Judging from what the Order Camp has done, their goal is not the material world, but an attempt to turn the yolk, the initial world, into an egg again to complete the unfinished Big Bang. Only in this way can the world be truly complete. As for whether this is the real idea of the Order Camp, or whether it is controlled by the internet, Owen does not know, because the integration of the Order Camp and the internet is the deepest, and no one knows the true details of the internet. In any case, if the Order Camp completes the Big Bang, then the world will usher in a new life. But this is obviously unfair to the current life in the material world, and all camps except the Order Camp are excluded. In this way, the new world will turn into a complete world of order, which is a very terrifying situation. Now in the evil and chaotic camp, one is unwilling to be excluded, and the other is not wanting to die. Once the initial realm explodes, the material realm will definitely be finished, and their fate can be imagined. So this is not only a battle for internet authority, but also a battle for survival. No wonder the evil and chaotic camp will release the ancient gods regardless of the consequences, because they have no choice. If they don't take a gamble, they are dead. And they are still not even scum. That kind of death. As usual, Owen couldn't help but take a breath. If his speculation was true, then the future would be too scary, and the preparations he had made would be meaningless. He rubbed his brows for a long time. But this did not relieve Owen's inner anxiety and irritability, because he didn't understand why these gods were looking for trouble. The material world is not perfect and has many dangers and hidden dangers, but the vast majority of living beings can still live a stable life. Although gods squeeze faith, they also provide necessary protection. Everything today is not perfect, but stable enough. Why does it have to be completely broken? Is this someone with obsessive-compulsive disorder? At this moment, I don't know what was touched. The system that had been silent for a long time suddenly broke through. and the progress value reached 90%. It is normal for a time traveler to have a golden finger. But he has become the master of the subspace, established a void empire, and created a new Zerg race that devours the world. The system has not yet been fully activated. This is no one else. However, this also makes Owen more and more excited about the system, because the system that has not yet been fully activated has brought him so much help. If it is fully activated, how awesome will he be? With inner expectation, Owen opened the system and checked the rewards given by the system this time. Chapter 653, The Law of Creation and Life. Infinity Stones. Equation of Life. Void Engine. Mother Goddess Gaia. After being silent for a long time, Owen sighed. Although he had stood very tall and was very strong, the inhumanity of the system would make him unable to help but call him Dad every time. Because any of these four things could make him standing at the top of the universe and being everyone's father. Now it doesn't matter even if the material world explodes. He is already invincible. This is the confidence brought by System Dad. However, once I started using it, I realized something was wrong. For example, although the Infinity Stones contained powerful power, they were not as powerful as imagined. Owen, who believed that the father of the system would not lie to him, took a closer look and understood why the Infinity Stones only have unlimited power in his own universe, and can only be used as paperweights after leaving them. Although the Infinity Stones are the embodiment of the root law of the universe, their functions are similar to remote controls. Each remote control can only control one TV. It can be turned on and off, and channels can be changed at will. But after leaving that TV, the remote control is just a decoration. This is common sense. Although the infinite gems currently given by the system have corresponding root laws, they are not fully functional because they are not bound yet. Now Owen has two choices. One is to use the Infinity Stones to compete for authority in the material world. But he is not sure whether the bound authority of the Infinity Stones can override the internet. If he fails, the Infinity Stones may not be able to keep it. Another option is to integrate into the subspace, complete it, and create a complete world of your own. The subspace is always in the chaos of endless changes. Owen is not sure whether it can evolve into a natural world. Although it may be difficult, it is not without hope. Then the second life equation, a treasure from the DC universe, is the life editor, which can theoretically increase the upper limit of life infinitely, with unknown limits. The third void engine is a miraculous creation that is superior to the existing matter in the universe, and has an unknown upper limit. The fourth mother goddess, Gaia, is not a deity, but a concept that encompasses all life. The combination of these four items can undoubtedly create a real universe. So Owen made up his mind to integrate all the rewards into the subspace, and create a world that is completely his own. In this way, even if the initial world explodes and the material world is restarted, he and the Empire will at least have a place to stay. If developed carefully, there may not be any possibility of turning against Tiangang and annexing the material world in the future. Determined, Owen first integrated the Infinity Stones into the subspace. It felt like dropping a small stone into a deep pool. It did not cause any fluctuations at first. However, Owen, as the master of subspace, soon realized that the 6 root-level laws were like magnetic rods inserted into the beach, continuously absorbing the unformed law fragments of subspace and forming the root laws of subspace. It immediately caused vibration throughout the subspace. When the 6 root laws were formed in the subspace, it was like inserting 6 thick steel bars into the constantly stirring cement. The subspace, which was always changing in chaos and disorder, showed signs of stabilization for the first time. With the concepts of space, time, reality, soul, mind, and power, the subspace has changed. But it is not enough, because there is no matter in the subspace, and without matter there is no life. Owen took out the void engine and made it a singularity between existence and non-existence in the subspace, connecting reality and illusion. It could transform the subspace into the material world, and even achieve creation and destruction. It's a pity that Owen doesn't have such a big pursuit, and the upper limit of the void engine is high. But how to realize its full potential is also a problem. So he only uses the void engine to create matter, and create the basis of existence for the birth of life. With the presence of matter, the subspace is further stabilized. Even if it is only a small part, it is still a qualitative change. Owen continued his efforts, and integrated the equation of life into the subspace. The life equation is the manifestation of the life process, and it is like a catalyst for the subspace. However, when the life equation is integrated. The one that is most affected is the world tree. Across the subspace, the world tree of the material world and the kingdom of God becomes clearer. Countless roots and branches spread, endlessly showing its majestic figure like the galactic version, and then constructing countless laws to fill the 6 major evolutions of the infinite gems. The gaps between the root laws are like barbed wire between steel bars, making the subspace more complete. With the law of stability, the matter transformed by the void engine will no longer continue to dissipate and return to chaos, but will slowly form a block of soil, a small island, and eventually a complete piece of land. After the subspace had the foundation for the birth of life, Owen gave the concept of the mother goddess Gaia to the mother queen, and then let her enter the subspace to evolve all things, because there was no one more suitable than her. As expected, the compatibility between the queen mother and the mother goddess Gaia is very high, and there is no problem in the integration of the two. Even after receiving the subspace authority granted by Owen, she became the concept god of the subspace. The subspace mother goddess, the queen mother, who existed in the subspace in an indescribable manner, began to fulfill the mission given to her by Owen, spreading the seeds of countless lives into the subspace. The authority of the mother goddess Gaia, the genetic seeds of the mother queen, and the nature of subspace have created a group of grotesque monsters, some of which are as huge as planes, some of which are like reflections of the starry sky, and some of which are as if they are physical. The manifested sounds, no matter what form they take, can set off violent waves of the warp with every move, because they are the embodiment of the essence of the warp. Owen frowned as he witnessed all this, and did not destroy these monsters that looked more ancient than the ancient gods, because they were the original essence of the subspace and also existing loopholes. So as long as they still existed, the loopholes would not be exploited, considered a useful stopper. But they cannot be allowed to mess around. Otherwise the entire subspace will become their paradise. To create life, it is to feed them. So Owen folded the subspace to form a glass jar, and put these monsters, who can be called innate demons, sealed and turned into the first stars. After the first attempt failed, the Queen Mother borrowed many race genes from the material world to gradually bring life and vitality to the first land. But Owen was still dissatisfied because it was plagiarism. Although Owen now has all the conditions for creation, they are all simplified versions, without enough accumulation, let alone creation. He cannot even continue to evolve in subspace. Owen is not in a hurry about this. Unless the material world explodes now, he still has time, and time is always on his side. In any case, the subspace has undergone earth-shaking changes, and in order to adapt to the huge changes, the main body fell into a deep sleep. Only the clone is still busy for the Empire, constantly dealing with one after another crisis. Chapter 654 The Shit-like Material World. The appearance of dozens of ancient gods is like Nurgle pouring soup into the material world, making a bowl of shit mixed with rice. Not only is it disgusting, but the impact is also unexpectedly serious. In fact, both the Order camp and the Evil Chaos camp underestimated the impact of dozens of ancient gods. After all, except in the ancient years, when had so many ancient gods appeared in the material world at once? Even then, the ancient gods did not appear all at once. So in the end, he shot himself in the foot. Quantitative changes led to qualitative changes. By the time he discovered something was wrong, it was already too late. After the simple creation of the subspace, the invasion of the material world by the subspace has become more and more serious. Now it is up to Owen to maintain the barrier between the two. Otherwise, the Warhammer version of the Eye of Terror will be staged here. By then, he had finished what the 4 vendors had not finished. However, this also caused Owen to become more and more sensitive to changes in the material world. Even as a clone, he was still aware of the smallest changes in the material world. Therefore, he was the first to discover that the laws of the material world had been contaminated by the ancient gods, and had even become cancerous and rooted in the cancer caused by the deep laws is spreading in the material world at a terrifying speed. It is well known that the power of the ancient gods can pollute and distort the material world. Generally, it does not take long to completely corrupt a plane. However, because the Order camp often handles it in a timely manner, no one has discovered that the pollution of the ancient gods is still there. It can involve deeper laws, which leads to the occurrence of disasters and is unstoppable. This kind of cancerous change rooted in laws has broken away from the changes and limitations of matter and involves the deep root laws. Therefore, conventional means cannot be avoided or stopped. What is even more frightening is that the cancerous changes have now begun to spread to the entire material world along the deep laws. Because the plane is self-contained, including the laws, there is still some resistance. But the void is not okay. It is unobstructed, and is the first to be affected. The orcs who had been fighting the Empire had a lot of trouble now. Because many orcs in the tribe were sick. With the body of an orc, ordinary viruses are completely ineffective. And they have never been associated with illness. It is as powerful as War Chief, who can drink the T-virus like a small blue bottle. But this time is obviously an exception. Huge tumors appear on the bodies of many orcs without any warning. And they are still growing. Even if the violent orcs cut them off, more will grow. And they will grow densely and layer by layer. The flesh is like grapes, eventually turning the orcs into bloated tumor aggregates. The strange thing is that even though they can no longer eat or drink water, the orcs are still alive and multiplying. Even if they are chopped into pieces by other orcs, their activity cannot be completely eliminated. And they may even evolve into some weird transformation of orc flesh and blood. Biology. The orcs tried various methods, including slashing with swords and axes, burning and flooding them, and even throwing them into the void. But it was still useless. Even the void could not decompose these strange creatures, because the pollution and distortion itself came from the laws spreading in the void. Feeling panic for the first time, the orcs began to pray to the orc gods. But the cancer followed their faith, and pulled the orc gods into the abyss. Who would have thought that cancer could spread along faith? Let alone the orc gods, who have always been careless. Even the god of wisdom would have never imagined that in the end, each war land would turn into cancerous tissue in the material world covered by green tumors. But this did not stop the orcs from moving forward. The random proliferation of tissues made the orcs larger and more tenacious. Even the war land has evolved biological organizations like forts, which can shoot the growing cannonballs at the enemy. The other party became like himself. So the orcs became the main force in spreading cancer. The Void Zerg, who were at war with the Queen Zerg, did not escape the disaster. Various mutations also appeared, especially the new Zerg, which was distorted into shape. Even the Queen of the Zerg grew all kinds of weird limbs. And some kind of something happened in her body. Legions, dark elves, void creatures. These creatures wandering in the void are all on the first batch of mutation lists. Now the entire material world is wailing, because they are no longer facing simple lesions, but are unwilling to be lonely after the lesions, and want to a disgusting thing that pulls people into trouble. These bastards waving mops stained with feces. They just fell into the pit themselves. But now they plan to drag everyone into the pit to have a taste of the saltiness, which is as disgusting as they want. Faced with this situation, the gods who claim to be omnipotent are helpless. And they are also afraid of shit. But it was useless. What frightened them the most was that the cancer had begun to spread toward the kingdom of God along with their faith. The weak gods were the first to fall and became a subject of infinite proliferation, when the kingdom of God was also covered by the cancer of laws. The already shapeless gods merged with the mutated kingdom of God and became a new mobile source of pollution in the void. Wander around and pollute more places. At this time, Owen understood that the material world had entered a countdown. Either the Order camp would detonate the initial world in advance and restart the material world, or give up the original plan and clean up the mess. However, Owen feels that the Order camp will not take action because the material world is now hopeless. Shit is fertilizer, which can be used to plant and fertilize the land. Rice is nutrition, which can fill the stomach. Now that they are mixed together, whether the shit can be washed clean or the rice can be picked out, it is obviously hopeless. After reaching this conclusion, Owen has begun to make final preparations. The Empire was something Owen couldn't give up, at least not until he had to. So he prepared to pull the northern group of systems into the warp. But before that, he needs to infiltrate the northern group of galaxies with psychic energy. Otherwise, it will not be pulled in, but torn apart. While Owen was busy infecting the northern group of galaxies with psychic energy, he was also inevitably contaminated by the cancerous pollution of the law. Fortunately, the northern group of galaxies is self-contained. Not only the laws, but also the magic power is isolated and filled with spiritual energy. Therefore, it is more resistant to the cancerous pollution of the laws. However, this cannot completely avoid the occurrence of pollution. After all, the entire material of the world has begun to turn into a cesspit. How long can the northern group of galaxies last even if they are covered with this film? Now all the Empire has to do is persist until Owen completes the psychic infestation and then pulls the northern group of systems into the warp. Only then can the Empire gain peace. At this time, Mutated humans and strange creatures are emerging one after another in the Empire, which has caused a lot of chaos. After all, in order to maintain the ever-expanding war, the Empire has been in a state of oppression, in the despair with no end in sight. Even faith may collapse. And once the shelter of faith is lost, it is inevitable to be contaminated and mutate. Moreover, the pollution will continue to expand. And if it cannot be dealt with in time, it will often cause serious damage. However, the Empire's large forces and fleets are still on the periphery to resist the invasion of mutant orcs and void Zerg. They cannot be mobilized to clear them out. They can only rely on special support sent by the Empire. Chapter 655 The Battle of the Nuns. In the void, a Golden Temple spaceship is accelerating towards the number 1 industrial plane. The Golden Temple spaceship is not a simple void battleship. It is more like a mobile temple than a battleship. Therefore, the people stationed inside are not soldiers, but nuns. These nuns with fanatical beliefs are the Emperor's most loyal believers and the main force in spreading the faith. At the same time, the battle nuns are also the sharp knives for eradicating heretics in the Empire. After all, as we all know, the nun standard equipment is not only a holy book, but also a holy book. There are bolters and chains words. Believe in the Emperor and bless you with the holy scriptures. If you do not believe in the Emperor, I will grant you liberation with the chains word. Betray the Emperor and show the Emperor's wrath with a bolter. This is the daily practice of nuns. Very direct and very imperial. At this time, the heavily armed battle nuns were lighting candles and praying in the incense-filled temple, because this place is full of the most fanatical and devout believers. The temple is filled with fanatical beliefs. Ordinary people, let alone entering, just get close. Their will be twisted, and they will become the Emperor's loyal lackeys. But this atmosphere is the daily life of the Battle Sisters. They pray, train, and prepare for war day after day here. This is not useless, because when facing the enemy, their fanatical belief in the Emperor is their endless motivation to fight. In the face of many heretics, only their unchanging faith and loyalty to the Emperor is their most powerful and effective weapon. And this will not change this time. There is an abnormal signal at the number 36 recycling base on industrial plane number 1, which is about to arrive. Sisters, for the Emperor. The nun who presided over the prayer stood up and raised the psychic sword in her hand. Infused with fanatical faith, the sword releases an astonishing psychic decomposition stance. Any material that cannot resist the penetration of psychic energy will be shattered, including energy and soul. It is a weapon full of destruction. For the Emperor! The Battle Sisters only had eyes for the Emperor. After shouting fervently, they boarded the drop pod with their blessed bolters and chains words, ready to descend from the sky to carry out the Emperor's will. It is said to be a mobile temple, but in fact all the functions and equipment of a battleship are available here, including airdrop pods. After arriving at the designated location, the bottom compartment armor was deployed, and the 2 airdrop pods were ejected. After passing through the plane barrier, they automatically adjusted their angles and landed not far from the number 36 recovery base. The hatch popped open, and the fully armed battle nuns quickly walked out of the airdrop cabin, completing the battle formation in just a few steps. Ahead is the number 36 recycling base. The signal fluctuated abnormally 1 day ago, and the signal was completely cut off 3 hours ago. It is initially determined that an irreversible abnormal event occurred in the recycling base. In the name of the Emperor, grant them rest. The nun placed the sacred book on the chest. The Emperor's last mercy was displayed, while the surrounding battle sisters pulled the bolts of their guns, opened the safety, and prepared the explosive bombs. With the integration of a large number of void fruits and the broken orc war land, the industrial plane has expanded significantly, so the recycling base has also increased. For example, the double-digit ones are all early and old models. It doesn't matter if it takes a long time, because the initial environment was too harsh, causing problems with many equipment. It is still in operation because the cost of dismantling it is higher than the cost of maintaining operation. However, the Empire has planned to dismantle all old recycling bases in the next 30 years. But the current recycling base number 36 may not be able to wait until that time. When the nun stepped into recycling base number 36, it was like entering a black and white movie. Everything lost its color. Only they retained the color. Obviously, what happened here was not a simple aberration, but a more serious abnormality. Bang bang bang. A burst of fierce explosions attracted the attention of the battle nuns on one side. The battle nuns in other directions did not turn their heads. but stared in the direction of their own defense to prevent the enemy from taking advantage of the loopholes. "What did you find?" "My sister?" The sister raised the heavy bolter as lightly as she could and walked over, asking the battle sister who fired. "Ghost! I saw a strange ghost, and the bombs were ineffective." The battle sister was still scanning for something, but she found nothing. The grand sister did not doubt whether the battle nun had seen it wrong, nor whether the other party was hallucinating. She made a gesture and ordered everyone to be on alert, which meant that if there was a problem, shoot immediately. As for rescuing the survivors, sorry, send them away. Seeing the Emperor is the greatest kindness, so there will be no survivors. Because of the battle sister style, no one wants to see these women falling from the sky destroy everything they see unless they have to. Next they saw more ghosts. But it was not accurate to say they were ghosts, because real ghosts could not get close to these battle nuns with fanatical beliefs. These ghosts were more like shadows, so they were not affected. "The space here has been stripped away and made into a mask of illusion. It's a very clever method." The elder nun is more experienced. When she noticed the changes in spiritual energy, she understood the situation here. The material world is gradually coming to an end, and various laws are beginning to have problems, becoming easier to pry and causing trouble. For example, the truth that is shielded here cannot be cracked by ordinary means. "Sisters, let us use the holy word of the Emperor to break open the space here." When faced with a problem, she relied on the Emperor. So the sister took out the holy book and said to the battle sisters around her, "It has to be said that the faith of these battle nuns is indeed fanatical, and they can immediately enter a state of prayer no matter where they are." So under the guidance of the senior nun, the fanatical faith began to urge spiritual energy to wash away the twisted space structure here. The surrounding black and white light and shadow continued to expand the scope of distortion with the praying nuns as the center, and finally opened up the false screen covering the reality, and also exposed the battle nuns to some existential perceptions. After the black and white state was lifted, the true face of recycling base number 36 was revealed. The place has been seriously polluted. The workers have turned into flower pots of proliferative tissue. All kinds of strange proliferative tissues are twisting and turning. The ground has become sticky, as if they are stepping on the body of some kind of creature. But the most terrifying thing is that I don't know. When did the Dark Elves sneak in? These mutated Dark Elves have lost their skin, and even their brains are exposed. At the same time, for some unknown reason, they have sewed their eyes shut, and only rely on hearing and smell to locate the enemy. Therefore, they are not affected by false illusions. But at this moment, they have been exposed to the battle, in front of the nun, originally lurking everywhere, playing illusions, trying to draw the battle sisters into their cruel games. But with the Emperor's protection, their plot failed, and they put themselves at gunpoint. After the truth was revealed, the battle between the two sides began. The bolter in the battle sister's hand began to roar, and as the heavy SH/LS were thrown out, the explosive SH/LS crafted by the Empire flew out of the gun barrel driven by the flames, accurately hitting the mutated workers, who had lost their human appearance and the protection of the Emperor, crushing their flesh and blood. And at the same time, the battle sisters' unstoppable prayers also turned into spiritual flames, igniting the dirty souls. But the focus of the attack is always the group of Dark Elves who caused all this. Chapter 656, The Explosion and Restart of the Material Realm. The incident that occurred at recycling base number 36 was just an ordinary trivial matter for the Empire, even if a recycling base was razed to the ground. After the incident was over, it would only be turned into a thin file and placed in a huge and dark archive. In the library, it is estimated that there is no possibility of being checked by anyone, and today's Empire has no time to pay attention to these small things. In fact, even Owen rarely pays attention to the prayers of believers, even those nuns with fanatical beliefs, because he has more important things to do, waiting for the explosion of the material world. That day, only when the material world explodes, space is shattered, and the laws are reorganized can he successfully pull the northern group of galaxies into the subspace. Otherwise, the fluctuations alone can kill most of the life in the Empire, and even cause the plane to shatter. But at this moment, there is no keep Owen waiting too long. The location of the initial world is not a secret. Most gods know where it is. As the center of the material world, the birthplace of the root law, and the location of the inner network of the divine network, the initial world is the strongest and most stable place. And it is also the camp of order, the last refuge. In the land of order, several big guys from the order camp were discussing something with the still living god of order, It could be seen that everyone's expressions were not very good, because the out-of-control situation forced them to make a difficult decision. Okay, we are all gods. We know very well that since the ancient gods escaped from contaminating the material world, there is only one choice left for us. The person who spoke was not a big boss, but a very ordinary god of order. Oh, but it was his words that made all voices stop and fall into silence. He is right. There is no point in arguing and discussing. Let's make final preparations. The boss who spoke made the final announcement. But I'm still very unwilling. It's obviously only the last step. Another boss clenched his fists, but was full of helplessness. Who told us to do too much? Leaving no room for compromise? It is not normal for the other party to choose to die together. Because the outcome has been determined. No one cares about superiority. An unknown ordinary god mocked, speaking of. The faces of the big bosses who made the decision were not very good looking. But just as the god said, it was their no-nonsense approach that caused the situation to completely collapse. In any case, the outcome has been determined. No matter what emotions they have, all the gods in the order camp choose to burn their divine power, divine body, divine personality, and everything they can burn, just to leave their mark on the order more deeply. In law, as the god of order disappeared, the land of order that had lost its maintenance began to collapse, triggering a chain reaction. Because of the disease in the material world, the law of order has been doing its best to maintain the final bottom line from collapse. However, after losing the god of order, it was like all the staff ran away, completely out of control. And the order, as the root law, was shaken to its foundation. The extremely stable root laws that were originally the pillars of the material world have been loosened one after another. And even impossible collisions have occurred with each other. The root law is the basis for the existence of the material world. Just like 1 plus 1 must equal 1. And a thrown apple must fall to the ground. Each root law as a pillar extends out countless secondary laws, which are connected to each other like steel wires, building the foundation for the existence of the entire material world. Their collision is by no means as simple as a collision, but a complete collapse. I don't know how long it took, but Owen, who was in the subspace, finally waited for an explosion that was enough to shake the entire material world. In his perception, the material world that had turned into a cesspit first bulged into a big bang, and then an infinite shock wave swept through most of it with a loud noise. In the material world, in an instant, countless planes dissipated like bubbles and merged into the void. But these are just appearances. In addition to matter, the explosion originating from the root law also destroyed the law network of the material world. Without the law network as the underlying support, the material world loses space, loses time, loses everything that can be lost, and turns it all into nothingness. After all, this is a restart that turns everything tangible and intangible into nothingness. The explosion is just an appearance. But because the material world is seriously polluted, the twisted laws have offset a lot of its power. After all, complete Lego bricks will break when dropped. And the only way to use the toolbox is to use the toolbox for deformed parts. The explosion originating from the initial world is gradually weakening in power as it spreads, because the mutated laws are more difficult to destroy. The impact that could have completely shattered matter and laws can now only push away most of the matter and remaining laws that are difficult to decompose. Just like throwing a firecracker into a pool full of garbage. The middle of the explosion is clean, but more garbage accumulates on the edge. For example, ancient gods and those corrupt gods. Only a few died in the explosion, and the rest were pushed away. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Owen successfully pulled the northern group of galaxies into subspace and completed his escape plan. But the changes caused by an explosion in the material world had just begun. But Owen didn't expect that the aftermath of the explosion in the initial world would stop at the edge of the material world, which meant that the power of the explosion was not enough to shatter the entire material world. This was by no means good news, because those ancient people who were pushed here, the gods and corrupt gods, are still alive. But they are wrapped in layers of material that is difficult to dissolve, which is a kind of alternative seal. Without enough time to pay attention to these, Irving focused on the next changes. As the aftermath subsided, the huge vacuum created by the explosion began to disappear. Just like the surrounding water would automatically backfill after the power of the explosion in the water ended. The incalculable void matter that was purified in the explosion just gathered together at an extremely fast speed as the vacuum disappeared. Something beyond imagination was bred in the extremely high mass of the core. And the remaining edge of the material world was like an abandoned snake shed. It still carries the mark of the old era, But there is nothing between the two. It is not void, because there is no matter and laws between the two, including time and space. So even the ancient gods cannot travel through it, because it does not exist at all. But this has no effect on the self-contained subspace, no matter the law or the mass. It is enough to fill the void that disappears in the middle. Therefore, after pulling the northern group of galaxies into the subspace, Owen has always paid close attention to the next changes, and has not missed it. Every bit. The laws disappeared, and those with insufficient levels did not even know what was happening. But Owen, as the master of subspace, could sense everything. The originally collapsed root law is being rebuilt, discarding useless structures and adding new elements, becoming more streamlined and stronger. As the root laws are rebuilt, slightly turbid substances begin to precipitate. The clear ones rise, and the turbid ones sink, outlining the prototype of a new world. New laws are also born again from the roots, weaving into a network, accelerating the formation of the world. Everything is changing for the better. Chapter 657. The SH. L outside the SH. L. When the dust has completely settled, the new world will take shape, and it will naturally evolve to become more complete in the future. The birth of a new world in the material world fills Owen, who has been observing, with joy. At the same time, the subspace is constantly evolving, becoming more and more perfect, and getting closer to the material world. However, there is always a layer of seemingly fragile reality between the two, an insurmountable barrier, because this is the will of the subspace master. However, the explosion of the initial world was not complete, because the periphery of the material world was still retained, which resulted in a 100% restart failure, leaving hidden dangers. As a result, there was not enough material to participate in the birth of the new world. So what appeared was not a complete one. The universe is a very large multi-layered world. Generally speaking, it is still not free from the structure of planes, but it cannot be said that it is not perfect. The new world is much smaller and more compact than the previous material world, which was like a scattered nebula. It is shaped like a top with two pointed ends. The most generous place in the center is the main material world. Countless planes rotate around a certain core and are affected by it, changing day and night and the four seasons. From this point of view, it is better than the previous material world, because the laws here are a whole, instead of each plane having a set of laws like before. Even if it is copied and pasted, there are always loopholes. Although the current laws are not perfect yet, as long as any point is completed, the entire main material world will benefit, greatly saving costs and improving efficiency. However, the main material world is not the only one. Its upper level is the heaven world, which is also the birthplace of the laws of the main material world. Here, various laws are clearly visible, but only the root law is invisible and intangible. At this moment, the root law is being reorganized. Although the previous root level explosion destroyed the root law, it also cleaned away the dirt accumulated on it and the unreasonable parts of the later operation. Simply put, the root law as the core operating law has been streamlined and became stable and more efficient. But in Owen's eyes, he discovered that countless divinities were born from the law with the emergence of the root law. And after integrating the marks left by the gods of the previous material world, they began to give birth to new gods. This is the instinct of the law, because the gods are not moths. They are the defenders and executors of the law. Therefore, the law instinctively resurrects the gods, who only leave their marks. And the existence of the gods will also speed up the transformation of the main material world, development and perfection of laws. At this time, countless spiritual beings fell into the main material world with the conception of the gods, and turned into the first intelligent races. They will also be the first believers of the gods. Owen also had a hand in this process, and gave birth to a group of races. After all, how could he just watch such a fun thing? The heaven realm can be said to be the server of the main material realm, responsible for setting rules and maintaining the normal operation of the main material realm. However, no matter how efficient the operation is, it cannot be without any consumption and omissions. So another department is needed to maintain it. So the lower H, L appears, because intelligent creatures have not yet been born. H, L is empty. But I believe it will not be long before H, L becomes lively again. I have to say that this is ironic. The wisdom that humans and other races are proud of is the source of sin, because wisdom represents the exploration of the unknown, and exploration represents endless greed, and greed cannot be eliminated. Sin-tainted spirituality reduces efficiency, so a recycling H, L arises. The emergence of hell will filter out the pollution produced by the operation of the prime material plane, like an oil filter. But filtration alone is not enough. There are always insoluble things that cause blockage. So the trash can that swallows garbage appears. Hell is not the lowest level, because there is an abyss below, where all things ultimately belong. Because in theory, the entire main material world will eventually become unrecyclable garbage and be swallowed by the endless abyss. And it will probably be restarted again. Heaven, the main material world, HL, and the abyss. These structures can all be compared with Owen's kingdom of God. Obviously his initial allocation of the kingdom of God was extremely reasonable. And it seems that he also has the talent to create the world. With the continuous evolution of the main material world, life was finally born. And then it was like repeating itself. Elves, dwarves, orcs, humans, more and more races appeared. And gods also performed miracles with their initial beliefs. Allowing faith is purer and stronger. The belief in gods has an instinctive desire. So it actively interferes with the main material world to accelerate development, and at the same time make the laws more perfect. However, this kind of interference will become more and more difficult. As the network of laws becomes more and more complete, gods will be tightly restricted to the heavenly realm, leaving the main material realm completely to the management of intelligent creatures. This is a good thing for mortals, but it is intolerable to gods. Therefore, all parties began to use various means to control the main matter, the most direct of which was to descend to Earth. Owen, who was sitting in the subspace, should not be interested in occupying the main material world. But the good things without an owner were right in front of him. It would be a waste not to intervene. So he also lowered his clone. The sinking demon Owen had no choice but to move his fat ass, holding his beloved soup pot, and was kicked into the abyss by his main body. Compared to the main material world, Owen is more interested in the abyss, because he discovered that the abyss that can extend infinitely will sooner or later touch the remaining SHL of the previous material world, where a bunch of ancient gods and mutants are sealed. God. No one knows what will happen at that time. So first place a stone in a key position. In fact, Owen suspects that this is not the first time the material world has been incompletely restarted. This incomplete restart leaves behind the SHL of the previous material world. The harmful substances contained in it will cause the new main material world to be invaded by the forces left over from the previous material world in the future. So, is the invasion suffered by the previous material world caused by the above? A reboot of a legacy SHL? According to the example of this incomplete restart, it is very likely that there is another SHL outside the previous SHL of the material world, which also contains certain harmful substances. It was also these harmful substances that led to the birth of the ancient god. And this restart failed. Total crisis. Owen didn't know whether this Matryoshka-like conjecture was correct. Even if he was the master of subspace, he was only limited to the new main material world. And he had no knowledge of the world outside the SHL. But the possibility is very high. And this is not just intuition. As the master of subspace, he will not rely on such low-level methods, but instinct and calculation. And finally calculates that the possibility of there being a world outside the SHL is 100%. More than 90. This is extremely likely. And it is almost certain that this inference is true. Then the question arises, what is the world outside the SHL like? Is there any danger? And is the main material world the only one? Owen cannot be sure of these, because his vision is limited to the wellhead of the main material world. Unless he breaks the SHL at the risk of causing real annihilation, and looks for possible opportunities and crisis. Chapter 658 The Pink Abyss and the Orc Demon. If Owen's guess is true, then this will be an alternative multiverse. And his Goldfinger dad may not be able to save his life in such a vast world. You must know that the system progress value has reached 90%, and the rewards given to him are still limited to the single universe. Therefore, he is not sure whether he can obtain multiverse-level rewards after the progress value reaches 100%. So whether to stay in a warm and comfortable well and be a happy little frog, or risk being eaten and become an eagle that spreads its wings and soars high. Owen didn't know what to choose next. His ambition couldn't support such a big worldview, with a space that belonged to him alone, an empire that he had built with his own hands, and a god system that was getting stronger. He seemed to have nothing to be dissatisfied with. The only problem is that he seems to be able to live for a long time. In this case, even if he hides and cannot get out, sooner or later, he will face the problem of unknown beings coming to his door. As a near immortal, It is almost 100% certain that he will face this kind of thing. Although it is possible that the crisis will never come until the day he wants to die. It is possible that it will happen to him in the next moment. Owen, who is accustomed to planning ahead, plans to make some preparations, such as guiding him out of the main material world to help him explore the endless world and the unknown. For this plan, he decided to start from the abyss. Whoever makes it the longest will be the first to touch the SHL. In addition, let the devil go out and launch an endless expedition. It sounds quite interesting. The demon Owen with a heavy mission descended into the empty abyss. And he was suddenly at a loss. Intelligent life has just been born. And sins have not yet fallen into HL. How could original sin give birth to demons? To put it simply, the current abyss is still pink and tender. At this moment, a pair of big feet stepped on the abyss of new life. Thinking about it for a while, he would have to sit down. The devil Owen felt that he was almost becoming a source of pollution. But no matter how pink it is, it will turn dark one day. It's better to let him do it first. At least he is gentler, and his movements are lighter. Thinking of this, Owen took out his big mushroom, and began to develop the abyss by growing mushrooms. The mushroom in his hand was fat and plump. And Owen kept hitting it against the abyss. Every collision and rebound would spread billions of spores, tainting the pure and simple abyss. Mushrooms full of vitality began to be born in the abyss. And special lives were also bred under the mushrooms. When the time was right, little green demons jumped out of the earth with strange screams. And they were able to fight for their own safety without any guidance. They have mastered the fighting skills. And they will fight each other in unison. And it will not end until only one little green devil is left standing. Even if his mouth is full of teeth. Even if he is missing arms and legs. As long as he is still standing, this little green devil will get the title of boss, and become the boss of these little devils hatched from mushrooms. After the fight, there was a dinner party, and the mushrooms on the floor, and the little green devil that couldn't move were for food. After eating and drinking, all injuries miraculously recovered. Then, under the leadership of their respective bosses, many green demon boys howled and launched an attack on the gangs led by other bosses, causing the chaos to gradually expand and slowly spread across the abyss, until the biggest boss is determined. Demon Owen was not surprised by this scene. Instead, he thought it was normal because he added some orc elements to the flesh and blood of the garden demon. The garden demon itself is half plant and half creature, and is very compatible with the orcs. So the fusion went smoothly, giving the new green demon some of the characteristics of the orcs. However, Owen didn't dare to add too much. After all, the controllability of orcs is almost zero. It's not that they are disobedient, but that their weird brain circuits don't necessarily work in the way you understand. Irving admitted that he was gambling. Fortunately, he had good luck. The new orc demons were generally okay. At least where he pointed to charge. They were really charging. And they were not blindly thinking. But it won't work if you get more detailed. The brain circuits of these orc demons seem to be twisting all the time. And Cinch scratches his head even when he comes. So don't expect them to be able to execute more complex commands. Now Demon Owen is mainly guiding the growth and evolution of these orc demons, trying to guide the incredible power of thinking. The psychic powers in the Warhammer universe are already incredible, and the orc's power of thinking is even more bizarre. I won't even talk about the basic methods. I think it's just fine. It's comparable to the synthesis in Minecraft. I've omitted everything except the result. Owen now has many powers, especially psychic powers, so the possibility of regaining my Shuancy power is very high. Of course, there is also the risk of losing control. But because he has to face unknown threats, Owen urgently needs to master some superstandard powers. So he needs to take risks. As time goes by, the development of the main material world becomes faster and faster. The first races have developed civilization and beliefs, and then formed their own distinctive social forms. And sins were born as a result. Keep walking towards the end of the abyss, followed by countless orc demons, who were fighting and breaking their teeth. Owen, who was carrying a soup pot and banging mushrooms to release more modified spores, suddenly raised his head and looked at the HL that was gradually becoming heavier. He shook his head without any emotion. What? Because that's the price of wisdom. Wisdom brings not only evolution and development, but also greed and sin. Even noble elves will inevitably fall into HL because of this. Let alone humans. With a huge number of races, a changeable and greedy nature, humans are the main force filling HL and abyss. It's a pity that although Owen considers himself a human being, he can't stop humans who are good at committing suicide. Even if he strictly guards against it, there will always be weird people who successfully get into the loopholes and achieve the achievement of committing suicide. So he simply ignores them. After all, they are all dead. You can also wait for the restart. As sins fell into H.L., the devil of H.L. came into being. And then came the devil's employees, who worked hard and never complained. The devils cruelly and efficiently deal with the sinful souls who have fallen into H.L. Just like an excellent sorter, they put the sin-stained souls into different layers of H.L. and then take the initiative to help each other eliminate their sins regardless of whether the other party is willing or not. And there are no fees. Although the process was a little more painful and took a little longer, it was all for their own good. Only when they truly realized their mistakes and became clean-hearted could they leave H.L. and start a new life. If you don't look at the process, it would not be an exaggeration to give hell an award for good people and good deeds. It is a pity that not many people can deeply understand the help that the devil brings to them. When faced with the torture of the devil, the vast majority of sinful souls either desperately beg for mercy or curse loudly until they become numb under the endless torture and finally become blank. Only then was he able to escape from H.L. But this method is inefficient and troublesome. And the devil is also very tired of it. But there is no way. The person who falls into H.L. is not full of sins. If we hope that they will repent from the heart and wake up, it is better to increase the intensity of torture. Turn them into idiots quickly. However, although this crude method can help the sinful soul escape from H.L., the sin in the soul will not disappear and will slowly accumulate to the bottom of H.L. Eventually, the quantitative change will lead to a qualitative change, and it will become the original sin and fall into the abyss, turning into a demon. Chapter 659: The bloody battle between the demon prince and the abyss. It seems that the pace is about to speed up. When Demon Owen sensed that demons were being born in the abyss, he couldn't help but sigh, lamenting that the abyss that originally belonged to him was finally stained with other colors, and that the abyss was no longer pure. With the continuous pouring of original sin from the main material world, the growth rate of the abyss is getting faster and faster, and the originally ignorant and obedient consciousness of the abyss is also rapidly learning bad things. For him, the strongest and most ancient demon, there is one more kind. I can't explain the feeling. Obviously, there is not much time left for Owen. He must accumulate enough strength before the abyss rejects him or the end touches the SHL. The number of orc demons now is not enough, even if they pile up as big as a plane. For gods, he only had to release his divine power a few times, let alone the world outside the SHL. He didn't think that a larger and more complete world couldn't breed more powerful beings. While Owen was trying to think of ways to improve the orc demon, he overlooked one thing. That is, the demon has appeared, and this is no longer his private territory. And it is unrealistic to expect that the chaotic evil demon will not provoke him, especially when the demon prince appears. The demon prince is the original demon who represents a certain original sin. He has a pure original sin, and therefore gets more favor from the abyss, so his strength grows rapidly. But sometimes it is not a good thing to grow too fast, because it is easy for people to see themselves clearly. So when the firstborn demon prince challenged him, the strongest and oldest demon, Owen was not surprised at all, just bored. Bolshero, the first demon born in the abyss, was transformed from the first drop of original sin that fell into the abyss from the main material world. So it is the most loved by the consciousness of the abyss. Even though it looks like a fusion of a maggot and a snake, with its mouth open, the spider can spit out countless sticky liquids, but it still does not prevent the abyss from pouring more love into it. Full of love, Bolshero grew up very quickly, and its appetite was extremely greedy, with almost no upper limit. Countless newly born demons became delicacies in its mouth, and it would even chew into the abyss when it was hungry. But this not only did not bring about the punishment of the abyss, but also gave it more origin, allowing it to grow almost endlessly. When the first 1,000 years passed, the 10,000-meter-long Bolshero was no longer satisfied with occupying only one layer of the abyss. It began to challenge the other layers of abyss. Countless powerful demons were swallowed up. It can be called a moving natural disaster. Until I met Owen. Just one look and he went crazy. The instinct of devouring everything tells it that as long as it eats the other person, it will get the greatest satisfaction. This is the biggest temptation for Bolshero, who has been in a state of endless hunger since birth. So it heads toward Owen regardless. Demon Owen was very unhappy as he watched Bolshero rushing towards him like a moving mountain. Countless orc demons tried to stop him on the way, but they became stains on its ugly appearance. However, all he felt was boredom. Because at this moment, he was being the consciousness of the abyss. Like protecting a cub. Stared at him. If he hadn't been too closely watched by the consciousness of the abyss, Irving would have chopped this bullshit demon prince into pieces and stewed him. The naughty child really needs an education. Let your uncle give you a complete childhood, Owen said expressionlessly. And then countless plants under his feet grew rapidly. The speed was as fast as a volcanic eruption, which caught people off guard. In the blink of an eye, it was bigger than Bolshero was taller, and intertwined to form a giant with thousands of arms. Thousands of hands. The slap full of care for the naughty child was like pulling down an entire meteorite belt. The force was so fierce, and the speed was so fast, that the air was burning. The slaps were almost endless. Roaring Bolshero. Good guy. There are thousands of giant hands that can cover the entire city gate tower with just one palm. They were filming from the beginning to the end. They were stunned to film the round Bolsa Roche into dough, with bodily fluids and undigested things coming directly from both ends. When it spurted out, the scene was so spectacular that even Owen's abyss consciousness trembled as he stared at it. Before being injected with original sin, the abyssal consciousness was simple. After being injected, it was just like a college student entering the society. It was immediately rendered colorful, and the thoughts became complicated. This is also the reason why the attitude of the abyssal consciousness towards Owen has changed. Because the consciousness of the abyss has realized that Owen's existence is beyond the constraints of the abyss. So it allowed Bolshero to test him. But the result was a weight that the consciousness of the abyss could not bear. Because Owen was too strong. As a clone of the master of subspace, his upper limit was too high to be imagined by today's shrunken version of the abyss. Of course, the abyss is still needed as a bridge. So Owen didn't intend to offend the abyss consciousness to death. So instead of killing Bolshero, who was only left with twitching strength, he stuffed it under the soup pot and ignited the source for a whole day. After burning for 1,000 years, the 10,000-meter-long demon prince was burned into a 1-meter-long maggot. Then he threw it back to the first floor and let it roll and wrestle with the little lemurs. Although he met such an embarrassing end, Owen knew that Bolshero would not die. As long as the love of the abyss was still there, recovery was only a matter of time. He just didn't know how long it would take to come to him next time. But what Owen didn't expect was that Bolshero was not an exception. He seemed to have become a target of some kind. All the demon princes and powerful demons in the abyss regarded him as a target to conquer. And there were even rumors of killing the oldest demon, will become the true king of the abyss. This left Owen speechless and annoyed at the same time. The problem is that it is obviously impossible to expect the demons to be self-aware. Owen has no choice but to lead his endless orc demons, and the demons led by the demon prince to launch an endless bloody battle in the abyss. This is obviously the purpose of the abyss consciousness. The orc devil boy was a match against the new devil. The two sides struggled with each other, inserting eyes, kicking birds, and stamping their toes. There was nothing they dared to use. The methods were really dirty. The bloody battle in the abyss spearheaded by Owen seriously stimulated the abyss. It was like repeatedly rubbing a certain point, secreting out more essence, and actively poured it into the demons, making them grow taller and stronger. Especially the demon princes. One after another broke through the bottleneck and became more powerful. But Owen and the orc demon don't get this treatment. But Owen doesn't need it. And neither does the orc demon. Because as their opponents become stronger, the orc demon becomes unreasonably stronger. The originally slightly thin orc demon boy became stronger and stronger, and gradually became a big orc demon boy. Each one had a big body and a thick waist. Standing in front of them, the strong orcs were as fragile as the bullied little cuties. It's called beating up a devil with one hand, pinching it, and punching a weakling. However, Owen was still not satisfied, because this did not fully unleash the potential of the orc demon. He simply stayed and cooked a more nutritious soup to water the growing mushrooms around him, allowing the mushroom garden to grow stronger. A larger orc demon. Chapter 660 The Great Expedition and the S.H.L. of the World. The endless bloody battle lasted for who knows how long. Owen only knew that the shape of the abyss had changed. It was originally a long and narrow strip like an intestine. But now it was bulging as if something had been stuffed in the middle. The bulge is the place where the bloody battle in the abyss took place. In this space, which is wider than the main plane, almost endless wars fill all the space, causing this layer of abyss to continue to expand. So big that even the abyss feels overwhelmed, twisting unconsciously. As we all know, the abyss is slender and curled, so it stretches out with a flick, especially the tail end. which is the fastest and actually breaks the distance. With a bang, the demon Owen, who is cooking an unknown number of pots of soup, suddenly woke up. As the largest and most powerful demon in the abyss. Even if the abyss consciousness is not willing, he still has extremely high authority. Just like facing a familiar person. Just like my wife. Although she keeps complaining. She knows what to do after just patting her, but Owen guessed from the vibrations of the abyss that this was because the tail end of the abyss rubbed against the SHL. Otherwise the vibration would not have been transmitted from the tail end to here. Has it been so long? Owen stopped stirring and allowed those dishonest orc demons to climb up and drink the soup, unconsciously falling into memories. In fact, the abyss would not have touched the SHL so quickly, but the endless bloody battle in the abyss seriously stimulated the abyss, speeding up the extension of the abyss, and shaking, and then touched the SHL in advance. Now that we're here, it's time to change the battlefield. Owen raised his but that hadn't moved for an unknown amount of time, picked up the empty soup pot, and banged it hard with a spoon. The sound suddenly resounded throughout the bloody battlefield of the abyss. The orc demon, who was addicted to the bloody battle, immediately realized something and ran towards where Owen was with cheers. Even if the axe from the demon behind him hit the back of the head, he would not look back. The originally lively place of bloody battles was suddenly half empty. The demon who had been screaming and fighting just now fell into a daze. Where was his opponent? There was never any mention of retreat in the bloody battle of the abyss. So the demon who lost his opponent was stunned at that time. Not sure whether it was out of curiosity or simply wanting to find a rival. The demons who came back to their senses chased in the direction where the orc demon went. After catching up, the demons didn't take action because the orc demons ignored them. Don't look at the rivers of blood they fight as soon as they meet. In fact, it's just to pass the boring time. Because the devil is immortal in the abyss. Even if the body is chopped into meat paste, it will be reborn somewhere and do it all over again. So cut and slash. In fact, both sides have no hatred. This time they ran together inexplicably. Mainly because the devil also wanted to see what the Great Crusade was in the words of his old rival. The Great Crusade? Bolshero, who once again stood at the top of the abyss, was no longer as impulsive as before. At this moment, he was also curious about the so-called Great Crusade. Owen is the strongest and oldest demon in the abyss. Even the consciousness of the abyss does not know his origin. The bloody battle in the abyss started by Owen, who single-handedly fought against the demons of the entire abyss. He was still able to gain the upper hand. If the consciousness of the abyss had not stopped them, they with the Devil Prince had probably been torn into pieces and stewed by the other party a long time ago. It was so strong that the devil felt desperate. And what kind of grand scene would it be to make him, who had not moved for countless years, stand up and gather all his men to launch a great expedition? Not only Bolshero was feeling itchy, but the other demon princes also gave up the idea of fighting and gathered their demons to follow Owen. A great expedition that affected the entire abyss started like a joke. As the demon moved, the end of the abyss became heavier and heavier, eventually sticking to the SHL. And Owen also led countless demons to successfully reach the bottom of the abyss. The bottom of the abyss is not a chrysanthemum, but an unknown mass of matter. It is not possible to say that it is a living thing. And it is not accurate to say that it is matter. It can only be seen that it is growing and expanding all the time, turning into a space that can breed demons. However, this is a forbidden place for demons, because any demon approaching here will be dissolved and become part of the construction of the abyss. But this is invalid for Owen, because he was not born from the abyss at all, facing the digestive organs of the abyss. Demons who have never been afraid of death feel terrified, because if you die here, you are really dead, without any chance of resurrection. If someone as powerful as a demon prince falls in, he will be whitewashed. Even if he is reborn, he will only be a demon prince with the same origin, and his self will have disappeared long ago. After Owen looked at it, powerful psychic energy shone in his hands. As the powerful psychic lightning was released, the bottom of the abyss began to be torn apart by violent psychic energy, like a blooming chrysanthemum. But it also stimulated the abyss to make reaction, such as clamping, facing the increasingly narrow space. Owen ignored it and pushed hard. In the end, the bottom of the abyss was pierced by psychic lightning and welded to the SHL of the world, making it impossible for the abyss to break free. Because the bottom of the abyss was exposed, the resistance of the abyss became weaker and weaker. The devil, who was so squeezed that he was about to shit, could finally take a breath. And through the chrysanthemum hole, He saw the stone wall that was difficult to describe in words. The sin and distortion contained in it. Even as devil, they were all stunned. The devil never knew that there was a wall at the bottom of the abyss. The SHL of the world is also the wall that blocks access to the wider world. Owen's deep voice attracted the attention of all the demons, especially the demon prince, whose eyes lit up after hearing this. They have long given up hope of defeating Owen, because they know very well that as the oldest and most powerful demon, Owen's power may have exceeded the scope of the abyss, and they will never be able to defeat the opponent with the power of the abyss. But what if there is power outside the world? This is exactly Owen's purpose. He knows that this is the remaining SHL of the previous material world. As long as it is broken, he can see another broader world, but he doesn't know whether it will usher in new life or destruction. Owen, who didn't dare to take a gamble, didn't intend to do it himself. So he aroused the interest of the demons, and then leaked the matter through the means he had set up earlier. Soon the news that the bottom of the abyss is the end of the world, and that there is power beyond the world spread throughout the three realms, causing a huge sensation. Before this, even the gods did not have the concept of outside the world. So when they learned about this, they were the most shocked. The gods who have been aloof since their appearance will not allow any power beyond their control. So even though they know it may be a trap, they still come. The incomplete law of heaven is actually here. It's incredible. These ancient creations are definitely leftover from the previous world. What a terrible and evil force. When the first god to arrive discovered that the rumors were true, that this was indeed the end of the world, and that there was indeed a power beyond the world buried, he immediately went crazy and could no longer control himself. Bent on digging out the treasure. It is a pity that the stone wall is made of matter and space that cannot be decomposed by the explosion of the initial world, and is mixed with the law of distortion and alien power. It is extremely resistant to any power in the main material world, including the power of gods and demons. So if you want to explore the unknown world, if you want to break the power of the world, then go dig. Where are all the things? Chapter 661, Getting Through with New Substances. After Owen set off the craze of treasure hunting, he withdrew, just like Roger's cry on the execution ground. Kill or bury. Let the demons of the abyss, the gods of heaven, and the strong men from the main material world climbing back and forth on the SHL of the world, looking for treasures with his butt out like a dog. His greedy eyes can even ignite the soul. There is no way. Although most of the outer SHL of the world is composed of pollutants that are difficult to decompose by the void, but there are also incomplete laws, fragmented godhead, and strange powers buried in it. These simply make gods and demons crazy. But for Owen it's all rubbish. Something that has been eliminated long ago. Finding a place to sit down again, Owen calmly cooked the soup, unmoved by the gods and demons clinging to the wall of the world like ants, because he knew that greed would make them follow the plan they designed. When they will the moment he cast his eyes on this place, the outcome was already decided. As expected, these treasure hunters soon discovered that the deeper they dug, the higher the possibility of encountering precious treasures. So they turned into miners one after another. No matter how difficult it was, they still persevered in digging out the SHL of the world, regardless of the consequences. Bolsaro has a unique advantage in this regard. Its mouthparts are like a shield machine, and its hard and fast-growing teeth are like angle grinders. As long as it bites and does not let go, it will go deeper and deeper. And he is also the first lucky person or unlucky person to unearth the remains of the ancient god. Why is this happening again? Owen, who was making soup, frowned when he saw Bolsharo rushing out and rolling around with green, evil flames all over his body, igniting a lot of fish in the pond. The ultimate source of evil energy is from outside the territory. It is evil energy that created an extremely powerful ancient god, although it was sealed in the initial world after paying a huge price. Even so, just a little bit of power leaked made the material world at that time feel like it was facing a formidable enemy, which showed how powerful it was. I don't know if several powerful ancient gods sealed in the initial world disappeared with the big explosion. If not, then there is a high possibility that they were sealed in the SHL of the world, in case they were released. Owen scratched his head. He didn't know how strong those ancient gods, who were sealed in the original world, were. Anyway, for the new main material world, they were definitely a natural disaster. So strong! So strong! When the evil energy was completely integrated into Bolsharo's body, the maggot-like demon prince raised his head and roared. The powerful evil energy fluctuations made the surrounding demons and gods change their expressions. and at the same time became even more enthusiastic about digging the SHL of the world. Bolshero glared at Owen with a fierce look, turned over and burrowed into the cave just now to dig deeper. It felt that there was more powerful power, and as long as it obtained that power, it could kill that person. The headband brings deep shame to the demon and becomes the true king of the abyss. Not some bullshit demon prince. How could a mere demon prince match its ambition? Bolshero opened his mouth greedily, releasing evil energy without any scruples, and speeding up the excavation. Owen just smiled at Bolshero's eyes and let them dig. He didn't even care about the orc demon who was looking for people to fight, because he was waiting for the SHL of the world to be dug through. One day. Although the SHL of the world is extremely hard, it still cannot stop the greedy heart. As more and more fragments are unearthed, the devil is okay, but most of the gods from the heaven have been seriously contaminated and distorted. Even the heavenly world has severed its connection with the laws of the gods, because if it continues to be disconnected, the pollution will affect the root laws. But the gods seemed not to notice. The powerful power had lost their eyes and hearts. Now they were like Gollum wearing the supreme Lord of the Rings. They had no other thoughts except digging. The problem is that the heaven can cut off the connection of laws, but the abyss cannot. Firstly, it is stuck and cannot be broken free. Secondly, the instinct of the abyss is to devour these non-degradable substances. Therefore, large and small distortions are all over the abyss, and are about to spread to the main body, material realm. At this time, Owen was not sure whether what he did was right, because he apparently lit the fuse called the end of the world with his own hands. However, Owen doesn't feel much guilt in his heart. Maybe it's because he has lived too long. Or maybe the endless bloody battles in the abyss have worn away his humanity. At least now, he does not regret it, but looks forward to the unknown that is coming. Owen's body is similar. He fell asleep in the subspace a long time ago and has not woken up for a long time. Evolving subspace and building an empire are very interesting. But no matter how interesting things are, they cannot withstand the passage of time, especially after thousands of years. Boredom gradually takes over his mind. Owen feels that he is becoming less and less human. But what he has not yet found an accurate position, which makes him feel an indescribable sense of loss. So his approach is different from the past, full of gambling madness. To put it simply, he is a little tired of living, so the main body will choose to sleep all the time. Otherwise, he is afraid that he will seek the possibility of relief. In Owen's expectation, the SHL of the world was finally dug through. Bolshero, who had just swallowed 4 corpses rich in the origin of evil and chaos, was rushed out by the power from outside the world. Then strange substances from the outside world came out of the penetrating the hole is poured into the main material world. Although the amount is not large, it has an extremely strange reaction. Just like a system upgrade and patching. With the influx of foreign matter, a large number of unknown laws began to affect the main material world. The main material world was already facing the problem of contamination. At this time, it was like grasping at straws, frantically absorbing these scattered laws to build a more complete and powerful law network. But Owen felt that something was wrong. Although there was no evidence, Owen instinctively felt that this was a very bad decision. But he could not influence the consciousness of the main material world. And he did not care. Bolshero, who had devoured 4 divine corpses, was struggling crazily. Evil energy, flesh and blood, chaos, and death were 4 different forces that conflicted and merged with each other in its body. Eventually, it turned into a cylinder with 5 heads. The body looks very strange, but the power fluctuations it emits are indeed unprecedentedly powerful. Get away from my body! Although he gained powerful power, Bolshero roared angrily. Now this is our body too, and you are just a thief stealing our power. The low voice from one face made Bolshero angrier and angrier. But it was unable to hurt the other person, and could only listen to the remaining 3 faces talking. The long-lost demon body. But how did the newly born abyss grow like this? How long have we been sleeping? When will you realize that the current situation is very bad? And those foreign laws are eroding everything. So what? The main consciousness that controls this body now is not ours. The confused consciousness made Bolshero extremely angry. When it saw Irving, it immediately found a way to vent. Chapter 662 Brass Planet. Why don't you always learn lessons? Irving looked at the still noisy Bolshero and shook his head expressionlessly. As for the 4 old faces, he was not surprised. They came from the same place as him. One of the 4 evil gods from the main plane has a lot of roles. but they are always around in the corners. Now he is so depressed that he can't even seize the house. 1 weakling plus 4 weaklings makes him unable to pay more attention to him. Not interested in. Right now, Irving is comprehending the laws of change. And he has drawn an unparalleled conclusion from it. That is, his guess is right. Each material realm is an independent and closed small pond. Although it is not large, it has its own ecological environment. However, all the lives inside are limited to this small world from beginning to end. Only those who break the upper limit can transcend and enter a wider world, obtain richer nutrients, and grow faster. But Owen doesn't believe that there is no danger in this. Catfish can dominate in small ponds, but in large rivers or even the sea, they may only be qualified as bait. Breaking restrictions represents freedom. If you are free, he is also free. Then it depends on who has the bigger fist. You can refer to the laws of the dark forest. Anyway, Irving does not think that those who can break through the blockade will have the ideological realm to work together for development. Die! Bolshero suppressed his confused consciousness and focused on his most hated opponent, trying to strengthen his belief and completely control his body by defeating his opponent. The roar of the quintet interrupted Owen's thinking, which made him a little unhappy, so he didn't plan to hold back this time. Among the clones, Demon Owen is the strongest in body and life. If you don't look at his creations, he can be called the incarnation of life. Therefore, he can withstand more and stronger spiritual energy, and can even easily crush a person with spiritual energy. The main plane, so faced with the breakthrough in violent Bolshero, he was still able to deal with it and restrained it easily. This time, there was no Abyss Mother watching. Owen planned to completely solve this little trouble. But the powerful space fluctuations outside the world surprised him. Outside the world is a void-like environment. At this moment, a large area of void is distorted, and the area is large enough to cover several main planes. What is this teleportation? Regardless of what is coming, give the other party a meeting gift first. Irving does not hesitate to throw the Bolsaro, which is roaring fivefold, like a sandbag. As the distorted space shattered, a huge creature appeared not far from the hole in the SHL of the world. It immediately attracted the attention of all the gods and demons present. It felt like a group of little mice peering through the mouse hole at the Overlord. Dragon. Everything they relied on was meaningless. What on earth is this? What have we done again? A god with less pollution suddenly understood the significance of the existence of the world SHL. But it was too late. The moment the hole appeared, the information belonging to the main material world had spread out at a speed that was already incomprehensible, just in time to attract the nearby world destroyer. Every world destroyer originates from a transcendent world, while constantly devouring and perfecting itself. It also becomes the destroyer and devourer of the world. It no longer matters what the original body of this world destroyer was. Now it is just a huge planet. The appearance of the planet once again confirmed Owen's guess, proving that the laws of the outside world are more complete and have a higher upper limit, which is enough to upgrade a flat, low-quality plane into a more complete planet. However, this is not a normal planet, because the entire planet is made of brass. Under the huge and thick SHL like a continental plate, there are extremely complex gears and mechanical structures, and the metal ring surrounding the planet is even more complex, changing form all the time. If Owen were to describe it, it would be Unicron in Transformers. Although he knew that there might be huge dangers hidden outside the world, it gave him such a big surprise. To be honest, Owen was moved. How long has it been since my heart beat so fast? While countless gods and demons were shocked by each other's existence, Owen held his chest and let out an incomprehensible sigh. The biggest problem with Owen is that he has never given up his identity as a human being. This allows him to maintain the bottom line. But it also creates hidden dangers, because people are not born as a long-lived race. For them, human life is a matter of anxiety, and short-lived. Later, Owen became a god and his life was almost eternal. However, his rapid improvement in strength also left him with a lack of time accumulation, and he was still not used to it. Once he became the master of subspace, it was completely too late, because Owen's thinking was forced to continue to improve with the expansion of subspace. And he couldn't stop even if he wanted to. The improvement of the height of thinking is not the most fatal. After the material world restarted, Owen put the Empire and some of the things he cared about into the subspace. It was like storing beloved toys in a secret base, or like carefully caring for a glass box for raising ants. But as time goes by, no matter how much enthusiasm and memories there are, they will become weak. no matter how happy something is. It will fade away if repeated 100 times. It will become boring after 1,000 or 10,000 times. After countless times, only indifference will remain. As a clone of the original body, the situation of the demon Owen is not that serious. But it is not much better. The endless bloody battles in the abyss have made him numb. This extremely powerful body is more like a SHL, and the heart beats faster than an atomic clock. To be precise, it represents the extent to which his mood is stable or lacking. But now, facing the unknown and a powerful enemy, his heart was once again full of vitality. Original body, our decision is right. Only the unknown has the motivation and reason to continue living, Owen said with a faint smile and began to awaken the energy of this body. Because there is still a battle waiting in front of him. Looking at him, when the gods and demons were panicking and Owen was excited, the brass planet did not stop. It was like a skilled eater, approaching the delicious food and then opening its mouth. The gears and complex mechanical structures scattered throughout the brass planet allow the outer armor like continental plates to unfold, revealing a terrifying internal structure like a crusher. To it, the ordinary plane is like a biscuit thrown into the mouth of an ogre. Obviously the SHL of the world can't stop it for long. Everyone, a new war has begun. What are you waiting for? Owen, who was gradually awakening the power in his body at this moment, immediately attracted the attention of all the demons and gods present with just one indifferent sentence. And his words also attracted everyone's attention. Gods and demons understand that war is inevitable. They are not mortals. The wails and curses originating from the world that linger on this brass planet are simply shocking. Therefore, they no longer dare to take chances, no matter what their previous status was. They are now the guardians of the world. Chapter 663 Subspace Corruption. Facing the huge threat posed by the destroyer of worlds, Owen took a deep breath for a long time. Even if he didn't take in any air, he still experienced a feeling of being alive, which made him very excited and happy. It is definitely not possible to passively wait for the brass planet to eat the SHL of the world. Owen, who is already familiar with the changes in the laws, releases the Rainbow Bridge and transports all the gods and demons, including the strong men of various races in the main material world. Just like the Avengers gathering. It's like going to a decisive battle with Thanos. But this time it's not a superhero, but a group of unlucky guys who succeeded in seeking death and implicated their own world. As soon as he arrived, he saw poor Sorrow being held down and beaten by a bull. This is a mechanical tower as tall as a mountain. The whole body is shining with powerful fluctuations of divine power, making the fine gold body indestructible and indestructible. It can be beaten by the powerful Bolshero with 5 faces. He was mostly flattened, and he was taking turns recovering from being beaten. If it weren't for the fact that the adamantine mechanical minotaur had only 2 hands and was similar to a puppet, its movement pattern was very rigid, and the 5 faces wouldn't even have time to recover. Even so, Bolshero, who had been so arrogant just now, was as weak as a dead dog. He could only shake his tail every time he was punched to prove that he was still alive, and at the same time endure the crazy curses of 4 invading consciousnesses on him. After all, if it hadn't thoughtlessly challenged Owen, it wouldn't have been thrown here, let alone beaten by a cow. As soon as he saw his opponent, the morale boosted by Owen was lost and disappeared with a pop. It's true that they are gods and demons, but that doesn't mean they can ignore the hardest substance in the material world. Fine gold. In fact, if fine gold is enchanted, it can hurt the gods, but it will not cause death. However, this refers to weapons. A mountain as tall as a mountain has powerful divine power attached to it. There is no need to cut it at all. It will never be reincarnated with just 1 finger. That is to say, Bolshero, as the most beloved cub of the Abyss consciousness, not only has strength that has exceeded the upper limit of the Demon Prince, but also has a strong source of the Abyss. Otherwise, it would not be able to withstand the seizure of the 4 evil gods. Even though it was so powerful, Bolshero was still beaten like a dead dog. How powerful this adamantine mechanical tower was beyond the imagination of all the gods and demons. They couldn't defeat it anyway. The adamantine mechanical minotaur is haunted by Bolshero. Let's not waste time to find the core of this place. Only by destroying the core can we save our world. The chicken soup provided by Owen has the right benefits, which all gods and demons agree on. They nodded, and then dispersed with expressions of despair. In fact, they have now recovered from Owen's chicken soup. They know that it is impossible to resist, even if their world is destroyed, because they can't see any hope at all. So the best way now is to find with the power to transcend the world. Even if the world is destroyed, they still have hope of survival. Owen didn't care about the betrayal of these gods and demons, because he didn't expect the other party to work honestly. He still happily led his orc demons to start the parade, and at the same time communicated with the body and infused the orc demons with spirit, can awaken their true potential. After many years of training by Owen in the abyss, the orc demon is no longer as simple as the first generation, and already has greater potential. It's just that this powerful potential couldn't be used before, so it was sealed away. Now it only needs one force as the key to unlock it, and that is spiritual energy. With the infusion of spiritual energy, the potential is opened. The first ability the orc demon masters is to demolish homes, and it is an extremely efficient demolition of homes. The brass planet has swallowed up countless worlds, and its quality has reached a very terrifying level. Therefore, the overall strength and durability are absolutely incredible. However, in the eyes or hands of the orc demon, it can be disassembled and reassembled. Toys. It doesn't matter if 1 or 2 people think so. As more and more orc demons believe this, there will be more and more places where the brass planet can be dismantled and used for something. And this move also activates the brass planet, the planet's defense mechanism. A large number of brass towern rushed out from various places. The number was like a torrent of steel. But this was great for the orc demons. They picked up the crude metal weapons they had just made and rushed forward to fight with the brass towern. Weapons don't work. An orc demon threw away the twisted weapon in his hand angrily and ran back. Instead of escaping, it plans to make bigger, harder, and more powerful weapons. And more orc demons are making this decision. There are even divisions of labor dedicated to making weapons, transporting them, and fighting. This is very unbelievable for the chaotic and disorderly demon. But in a very short period of time, it all happened so naturally. At the same time, the weapons of the orc demon have also changed very quickly, which should now be said to be equipment. It only took a few hours to go from a simple iron knife to a sturdy geared battle axe, after discovering that the brass towern were more durable. In addition to upgrading the weapons, I also learned to fix iron plates on the body to act as armor. Although it was nailed directly, I have to say that the potential of the orc demon made Owen very satisfied. So he was not in a hurry to advance, but found a suitable place and began to try to corrupt the planet with spiritual energy. Owen didn't know what the identity of this brass planet was, but he knew that the opponent's evolution was in the wrong direction, constantly devouring the world, constantly increasing its own quality and origin, and automatically creating various puppets and golems to act as an immune system. This astral-level creation is almost invincible, unless its core can be directly destroyed. It can only compete with this metal the planet is hardened. However, the overly large body caused devastating oppression on the original consciousness. So Owen did not feel much sense of resistance from this brass planet, and even lacked instinct. And some were just mechanized procedures. Maybe it's because the damage caused is not enough to awaken the true consciousness. It is similar to Owen's body. He is tired at the same time, and fell into a deep sleep with his woman a long time ago. As for why he brought his woman with him, firstly, he is afraid that he will forget them. And secondly, he is afraid that they will forget him. Time is really terrible. After that, all the gods of the Empire fell into deep sleep. Only Owen's 2 clones maintained their awareness of the outside world. The clones had no human rights. Now the hardships have finally come to an end. The unknown, exploration, enemies, battles, and the excitement that comes one after another make Demon Owen feel like he is alive again. As Owen sat down, powerful spiritual energy was released and began to corrode the brass planet. After being connected to the outside world, the subspace that had been calm for a long time began to boil again. This time, the subspace began to expand crazily towards the unknown outside world. The resulting wave of chaotic spiritual energy was extremely strong and beyond the control of the main body. So Demon Owen, I plan to share some of it with the main body and use it to corrupt this planet. It's my first time to use subspace chaotic spiritual energy to corrode a planet. Let me see how far I can go. At this moment, Demon Owen smiled like a demon, and like an innocent and curious child. Don't care about the consequences you cause. Chapter 664, The Chosen One of Chaos Demons. The original subspace is chaotic, changing, disordered, and void. So it is indescribable, incomprehensible, unperceivable, and incomprehensible to look directly at. It is unknown, a miracle, and the source. After Owen became the master of the subspace, the chaos gradually became clear. and after precipitation and filtering, it was divided into the basic spiritual energy of the area where the empire was built, the advanced spiritual energy of the isolated area in the middle, and then the chaotic spiritual energy controlled by Owen. As for the most essential chaos, even Owen, as the master of subspace, cannot fully control it, because chaos has no concept of order and control at all. Endless changes and unknowns are the essence of chaos. Even Owen, as the master of subspace, can't change it. This time, Demon Owen communicated and released chaotic spiritual energy, and its quality was still higher than that of divine power. Although it had been transformed, its essence was still chaotic and disorderly. It was difficult to control the main body precisely, let alone the clone. However, Demon Owen had no matter how you plan to control it carefully, as long as the general direction is correct. And he prefers to see changes that are not under his control, because only in this way can it bring him more surprises. Unmeasurable amounts of chaotic spiritual energy emerged from the hole opened by the Demon Owen. The chaotic and sticky terrifying spiritual energy immediately eroded and corrupted the surrounding environment. The surrounding brass, which was always shiny, suddenly became like corrosion. The sticky cheese and inexplicable biological tissue appeared on the metal and fused together perfectly, as if the metal suddenly evolved to possess life. Owen found it very interesting, rubbed his chin, sowed some seeds, and observed the distortion and evolution of life. At this time, the orc demons also felt the changes here. Their essence originated from the subspace. Although they are highly adaptable, they are still semi-psionic creatures. With the current changes in the environment, they are like a fish in water, and the speed of evolution has begun to leap forward by leaps and bounds. When the huge roar and explosion sounded, Owen came back to his senses and suddenly discovered that the orc demons had turned the corrupted materials into their own orc demon weapons, such as the Demon Tutu gun. Orc Bang Bang the cannon was powerful enough to swish, and he even saw the shorter orc demon building a heavy tank equipped with a demon engine under the punches and kicks of the technical orc demon equipped with metal prosthetics. It seems that the engraved technology plays a role in them, Owen thought. This kind of replica technology usually doesn't work, especially in such a sloppy and single material environment. But with the ability of the orc demon, I can really do it. Bullets of different calibers are shot from the muzzle of the big and wonderful gun, and then randomly find an unlucky guy to express his presence. And then it is covered with bang, bang, swish. And finally there is the big guy who specializes in fighting, wearing thick but messy heavy armor, with a gear battle axe in one hand and a big bang in the other. The demons rushed up with howling monsters. Even if their opponents were only brass minotaurs that couldn't bleed, these fighting creatures were still fighting with enthusiasm. Move yourself, and then send out more inspiration to create more and stronger weapons and equipment. The noise between Owen and the orc demons grew louder and louder, eventually activating the inner defense mechanism of the brass planet. More and larger brass minotaurs emerged, and the orc demons also followed suit to create bigger, stronger and louder ones. In response, the two sides fought fiercely, attracting the gods and demons who had scattered away. At this moment, they didn't know who was the most terrifying and powerful among them. A clever and bold demon stepped forward, and he was also a demon prince. Therefore, he knew more clearly how powerful the most powerful and ancient demon in the abyss was. Now it was proved that the opponent's strength had already surpassed the supremacy of the abyss. And even all this, they are all in the opponent's plans and expectations. And now they are eroding the extremely terrifying world destroyer under their feet. So it is not difficult to choose. What is difficult is to be the first one. Seeing the demon prince kneeling in front of him, Owen smiled. It was worth his while to control the erosion of chaotic spiritual energy so that the other party could come to him completely. Interesting. Since you made the choice, then I will give you the origin of chaos to bring me more fun. Owen grabbed it casually, and the chaotic spiritual energy that was still pouring out was extracted and poured into this lucky man. The demon prince? No. It should be called the chaos demon god's chosen now. After all, as the first lucky one to surrender, it will naturally give more bonuses. Chaos spiritual energy is really suitable for demons. Not to mention this demon prince with great potential. Everything about it, including the origin of abyss infusion, has been transformed into something more suitable for subspace under the terrible erosion of chaotic spiritual energy existence. And at this time, it was fortunate or unfortunate to discover the subspace, and the fact that it was working for an extremely great but indescribable supreme being. Cooper will give the most wonderful performance to the Supreme Master. Cooper, who has become more powerful and ferocious, reveals his fangs, and is filled with powerful chaotic spiritual energy fluctuations. He holds the transforming chaos weapon in his hand and smiles ferociously. Said, each demon prince has an army of demons under his command. Cooper, whose image has changed drastically, summons the demons under his command. Anyone who hesitates will be killed mercilessly. The rest will naturally be obedient. Accept the gift of the Supreme Lord. The loser will only be destroyed. Cooper then roughly opened the cracks in the subspace, allowing the chaotic spiritual energy to vent, and transforming his men into chaos demons. These demons could see Cooper's changes, and they were all moved. Therefore, they decisively abandoned the abyss and threw themselves into the embrace of subspace regardless of the wailing of the abyss. As spiritual energy was infected and transformed, the sky above the entire demon army was filled with an unsettling, terrifying aura. So more and more gods and demons chose to join and kneel in front of Owen. But they could only obtain ordinary transformations, and could not obtain a leap in life level like Cooper. This makes Cooper more proud and cautious, because it knows very well that its current position is not stable. Once a god or demon pleases the master, it will easily take its place. So he immediately led his army into a gap somewhere, looking for a suitable performance venue to put on a wonderful performance for the master. As for danger or death, Cooper, who understands the nature of subspace, doesn't care, as long as the divine grace is still there. Even if it dies countless times, it will still be resurrected from subspace, and its power will not be weakened at all. When those gods and demons gained spiritual power, they immediately understood that this was the power they were looking for to escape the shackles of the world. As long as they had spiritual power, even if their world was destroyed, they would still not lose their power or their eternal life, still looking down at the mortals from a high place. So he flexibly began to imitate Cooper, looking for a suitable venue, and planned to put on a wonderful performance. Chapter 665 Disintegration. Facing the many different choices of gods and demons, Owen didn't care. It was like watching different TV programs at the same time. He still sat there and watched while continuing to release chaotic spiritual energy to distort and corrode the brass planet, as if he wanted to let a healthy apple rot as quickly as possible. This time with many gods and demons as moving subspace markers, Owen released more chaotic pollution and spread over a larger area, leaving the apple covered with mold spots and immediately activating more defense mechanisms of the brass planet. Because the entire planet is a mechanical body, no one knows how many things are hidden inside. All they can see is the endless brass tauron, like white blood cells in the human body, swarming in from all corners. Fighting with the orc demons, and the chaos demon army launched a fierce war, relying on their numerical superiority to nearly drown the two. But it's useless. Orc demons reproduce very fast. There are almost as many orc demons as there are spores. With the blessing of chaos spiritual energy, the growth rate is incredibly fast. It can be said that one spore is a mushroom. A mushroom is an orc demon, so it is almost inexhaustible to kill, even if the brass minotaur repeatedly crushes every inch of the ground with its hard hooves. More mushrooms will always grow in the corners, even when the brass minotaur on the body. Although there are not that many chaos demons, and their reproductive capacity is not that strong, they are immortal. So you can see that the chaos demons here were just killed by the brass minotaur, and they were reborn from the vented chaos spiritual energy, and the position is refreshed randomly. Just like the endless wild monsters in the leveling area, it is almost time to refresh the screen. Fortunately, the brass minotaur is a puppet with no self-awareness. If he has any consciousness at all, he will probably collapse. The increasingly serious crisis finally reached the point of awakening the planet's consciousness. In order to avoid being oppressed by the mass that exceeded the upper limit, the poor planet's consciousness began to wake up and was forced to bear the seriously overloaded mass. The intruder cannot be eliminated. Activate the escape device. For some reason, Owen was stunned to hear a feeling of joy from the last sentence, and then found that the entire planet began to decompose. First, there is the heavy outer armor SH.L like a continental plate. After the explosion bolt detachment device is activated, and the crater-like connecting device spurts out flames hundreds of meters high, the armor begins to detach, followed by the internal mountain-like metal frame and transmission structure, power structure, as well as resource recovery conversion and power system. The whole system is not complicated, but the layers are added up to build this behemoth, which makes the original core unbearable and even impossible to get rid of. Because according to the original setting, even the core cannot disintegrate itself in violation of regulations. Even if this can, it is free from constant self-sacrifice. Therefore, the intruder represented by Owen gave the other party a chance to escape. After realizing this, Owen just laughed. The tortoise who had shed his I was much lighter. The question was, could he run away? But don't worry. Let it take off its L first. Owen calmly uses those gods and demons as nodes, and uses spiritual energy to attract those LS that is separated from the main body of the brass planet. This makes those gods and demons the first to be eliminated. The targets could only run around in embarrassment, which made Owen laugh out loud. In order to make them last longer, they were given more chaotic psychic energy according to different performances, and even directly resurrected those who should have returned to the subspace to lie down and wait for recovery. The unlucky guy. Gods and demons are not ordinary chaos demons. Their resurrection is more troublesome. But for Owen, these are not problems. Sooner or later, it is not him who has the final say. After discovering that they could not die no matter what, and even became stronger and stronger, many gods and demons who took refuge in the subspace realized the power of the supreme master of the subspace. So they became more attentive and even sacrificed to achieve their goals. Because the gods and demons, it is clear that sacrifice is nothing compared to pleasing the supreme being. After many gods and demons invented various ways of death, brass armor plates in the void, as big as land, were attracted to each other under the influence of chaos spiritual energy. Then Owen opened the chaos channel, forming a crack, and a massive amount of chaos spiritual energy, it can be poured down thickly, melting or twisting all these metals, and forming a planet of chaos. Because the influx of chaotic spiritual energy was too large, it began to cause extremely terrifying phenomena to the outside world. The originally colorless void was distorted and turned into colorful black. At the same time, the L of the world not far away was also corrupted. It is like turning into biological tissue, and some twisted monsters are born from it, each one more ferocious than the last. These monsters are not chaos demons, but lower quality derivatives, just like barnacles growing on the bottom of ships. But that does not mean they are useless, because Owen needs more and more complex materials to build his planet. So the already damaged L of the world cracked, and under the influence of chaotic spiritual energy, it was thrown into the forming chaotic planet. Every part of the brass planet is extremely pure, and every part of the world L is extremely chaotic. The two sides should be completely incompatible, but nothing can reject the warp, and nothing can resist the distortion of chaos spiritual energy. So the matter just stirs together to form a weird planet. At this time, all the LS of the brass planet have been decomposed, and a large number of internal parts have been discarded. All of them were absorbed by Owen, who never refused to come. They all fell to the chaos planet, and were picked up by the cheering orc demon with a smile on his face. They began to use their imaginative and unconstrained methods to create the Anksunsi flow. A hole was dug in the middle of the chaos planet, and an indescribable cannon was gradually knocked out by the orc demon, which made Owen's brows jump when he saw it. The orc demons on the surface are building huge metal machines. They actually imitated the fine gold mechanical tauren to build the ancient giant foundation belonging to the orc demons. Still lacking motivation, Owen murmured to himself, then stretched out a big hand to catch Bolshero, who had also landed on the chaos planet, but was hiding and shivering. Although it's a little thin, I can only make do with it. Although Owen was a little dissatisfied, he still didn't let it go. He lit Bolshero like a candle, and stuffed it into the core of the chaos planet, like a spark plug. Ignite the continuous infusion of chaotic spiritual energy to provide powerful energy for this battle planet with endless whales. With sufficient power, the orc demon became more motivated and prepared for war. Owen also saw the true form revealed by the brass planet, a metal giant that started at 100 kilometers. Although the metal giant is tall, it is obviously small compared to the previous metal planet. No wonder the oppression almost wiped away its self-consciousness. Even now, it has not fully recovered. He vaguely felt the threat posed by the chaotic planet, and condensed into the actual world-destroying divine power directly ignored the space on both sides, and fell on the chaotic planet, almost tearing the entire planet apart. And countless orc demons were destroyed along with it. With a touch of Owen's hand, time was reversed. The cracks disappeared. The divine power was swallowed up by the subspace, and everything was as before. Chapter 666, number 666, complete. It's the root-level law of destruction. Is this the standard outside the world? Owen said with some emotion. There are only a few of the root laws in the whole world, and although they can be destroyed, they are indelible. To put it simply, they can be broken. But they will not disappear. They will eventually reappear, just like an immortal saint. So once you rely on them, the law of origin means immortality when one becomes a god. Unlike the gods in the world, they all rely on secondary laws born from the root laws and cannot be fully integrated. So there is a risk of complete demise. But the root gods are not invincible. At least not to Owen. What he is worried about now is how many root gods there are like this. You are strong enough to leave the world. Why are you still here? Even Urotada's voice carried the power of destruction. The surrounding space first squeezed out wrinkles, then shattered, emitting an indescribable white light. Until only when the space is repaired can we see things again. But the two parties do not rely on vision. So it has no impact on the conversation. Because there is no target yet. Owen's voice contains vitality. Countless spore fungi are produced out of thin air, multiplying infinitely under the influence of chaotic spiritual energy, making the surrounding space sticky. At this time, no matter whether living things or matter, as long as anyone who enters the range will become nourishment. The outside world is vast. Urotada knew what beings like the other party wanted to know most. So he branched out a little bit of consciousness. It is said to be divine consciousness, but it contains the consciousness of destruction. Even gods and demons at the level of the Lord God will completely disintegrate once they come into contact with it. Owen stretched out his fingers and tapped lightly, and the vast starry sky appeared in his consciousness. This is the world that Urotada has experienced, or the world that has been destroyed. Urotada, like Owen, is a detached person from a certain world, but he soon discovered that he was just jumping from a small world to a larger world. Because the L of the world still exists here, just like a Matryoshka doll same. The unwilling Urotada tried to break the L of the world and wanted to see the outside of the world outside the world. But he failed. At the same time, the law of the source of destruction was also out of control, causing him to have to relieve the root of destruction by destroying the world. The pressure of the law on himself. But the more destroyed, the more powerful the law of the source of destruction. As a last resort, Urotada chose to seal himself and relied on instinct to act. In the end, he almost sealed himself. I'm very interested in the L of the world. Take me to see it. Owen said unceremoniously. I don't know what Owen's words touched, but Urotada's consciousness of destruction suddenly took over. In the huge metal body, endless divine power of destruction began to emerge. There was no target, and no need for a target. The result was destruction. The chaotic planet under his feet could not withstand the power of destruction, and began to disintegrate. So Owen began to retrieve the authority stored in the subspace. As the avatar of the master of subspace, Demon Owen has the authority over life, nature, reproduction, rebirth, disease, plague, hope, etc. With the return of these authorities, the real him begins to revive, and his form gradually reveals the essence of subspace. Almost infinite, endless, chaotic spiritual energy forms a frenzy and emerges into the total reality. The nearby L of the world is twisted and activated in an instant, like a mutated starfish, beginning to devour the main material world inside, and even destroy the divine power. In other words, Owen didn't do anything at all, but just the impact on the surroundings destroyed a world. Urotada's remaining consciousness did not understand what was in front of him. It was completely different from everything he knew. However, as the law of the source of destruction continues to revive, his self-awareness is gradually suppressed. Divine power full of destruction continuously emerges from the huge metal body. The surroundings are affected by the law of destruction. Countless substances and laws collapse. And with Owen the life forces collide. The collision of destruction and life is more exciting than life and death. With Owen as the center, countless spore fungi appear from scratch and continue to grow, making everything around them slimy, and making it feel like breathing is stringy. The collision between the two sides is like water and fire. But even the law of the origin of destruction has nothing to do with the life transformed by chaos spiritual energy. Because chaos does not have the concept of being destroyed, but instead stimulates the subspace to release more chaos spiritual energy, gradually approaching Urotada Tower. By the time Urotada realized something was wrong, he had already fallen deep into the subspace. Where is this place? When Urotada woke up, he was horrified to find that the law of the source of destruction had failed. He was now just a tall metal giant, and could not be called the destroyer of the world at all. Let me see what you are hiding. The L-Sage Owen appeared at some unknown time, expressionlessly manipulating psychic energy to dismantle Urotada's metal body, needing his consciousness, and extracting the source of his destruction. Laws, ultimately extracting everything you want to know. The worlds are like seeds in a fruit, connected by branches that Urotada calls rivers. Then the small branches connect to the thick branches. The thick branches connect to the main trunk, and finally flow into the roots of the tree. As for what is under the roots of the tree, he does not know, because no root god who enters it returns. Original body, it's time to get up. We seem to have found a way. Demon Owen angrily turned the stripped out law of the source of destruction into terrifying lightning and threw it into the subspace. This is similar to throwing a small cannon into the bed. It doesn't hurt much, but it is enough to wake up the sleeping body. As the master of the subspace, Owen's awakening is not that simple. The entire subspace has set off an endless spiritual frenzy, which has even penetrated into reality. The main material world that is being eaten by the chaotic starfish transformed into the SH.L of the world is like the sandcastle on the beach disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. And even the chaos starfish was sucked into the subspace and became one of the countless monsters. After the subject wakes up, the two clones' consciousnesses are connected to it, exchanging memories of countless years. I've been sleeping for so long. Irving rarely sighed with emotion, but his unwavering heart made his behavior more like an imitation. Imitating himself and this person. However, his mood really fluctuated when he saw that the system's progress value had changed again. As the progress value finally reached 100% and the system officially started to activate, Owen's mood fluctuated accordingly, and the side that had been forgotten by time revived. He recalled his time as a human being, and at the same time, he was attracted by the side shown by the system. The inside of the system is not as mysterious as imagined. It is an aggregation of blessings from countless Yen Su at Owen. And this aggregation is numbered 666. That's it. Owen smiled. He was not alone. After adding your own blessing, separate a portion from the aggregate and throw it into the void. Owen looked at the reward given by the system when it reached 100%. Minecraft, and began his own journey of creation.